No, she went downstairs, put the TV really. Call to order the meeting of the zoning board of adjustments. Salute the flag, please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The notice of this meeting has been satisfied in accordance with Chapter 231 PL of 1975 by advertising in the Home News Tribune, notifying the Sentinel Publishing Company and Star Ledger, posting on the bulletin board, and filing with the Borough Clerk. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Here.
Mr. Kreismer?
Here.
Ms. Cataldo? Here. Mr. Corrigan?
Here.
Mr. Henry?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Thank you. All right, we have a case that was held on, oh, it's withdrawn, okay. And, we have case 1701. Isaac Buccetti. Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I've had an opportunity to review the affidavit of publication of public service. The board does have jurisdiction to do that.
Could I have a motion to deem this application?
So moved.
complete?
Second.
Who will be testifying? You will. Sir, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Please state your name, spelling your last name and address for the record.
Anthony Hope, Hope, 1 Ash Terrace, Parley, New Jersey, 08859.
Okay.
Hey, could you explain what you want to do?
We're trying to get a variance. The home that we purchased had items already in place, and the items have been in place for approximately 20 years, and we just want to get everything approved so we can move forward.
Just for the record, are you Ms. Uchechi?
Yes.
Isaac? Okay, okay. So you're the applicant, but I'm assuming you're both the owner of
Yes.
this property? Okay.
That's correct.
That's fine, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions on this application?
Just one quick, could you explain a little bit further what you want to do on your property?
We're not doing anything. The house had a pool shed, it had a deck. These items were installed without proper permits.
Prior to your ownership?
Yes. So they've been in place for 20 years.
When did you acquire the property? When did you purchase it?
August of 2016.
Okay, just recently, okay.
And they're already in place in the same footing. Okay. Anybody have any questions on this?
So did you get a notice of violation? Why did you come forward?
The house was a foreclosure. So I believe the prior owners didn't have any kind of township issues that would have got the township involved. So they probably exchanged hands, 3 hands prior to us.
All right, so you bought it as a foreclosure property?
Yes, as a as-is property.
At a sheriff's sale or
No,
arm's length?
it was just a
Okay.
foreclosure.
Okay. And you did your own due diligence and determined that there were no permits, and that's why you're here this evening? Okay, gotcha. All right, very good.
Anyone else have any questions? Have a motion open it to the public?
So moved.
Second. Okay, anybody like to speak on this application? Anybody like to speak on this application? A motion to close it.
So moved.
Can we have a listing of the
I just
variances?
need to know the variances.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. First of all, the property is a corner property. It's on Ash Terrace and Cedar Terrace, so it has two front yards. That's one of the variances because they're putting or it has a front yard shed, which is not allowed in the front yard. The second one is there's an accessory structure for the pool shed, which is 192 square feet, and you're only allowed 150 square feet maximum. The accessory structure of the pool shed setback is 4 feet off the westerly property line, and should be 5 feet minimum. The structure also should be 2 feet, or is 2 feet off the northerly property line, and it should be a minimum 5 feet. Concrete pool, which is a man-made structure, the patio should be a minimum of 5 feet, and it's 4 feet. And there's a shed in the front yard, as I said, that's 7 by 10. It's size-wise, it's okay. And then the deck is attached to the house, and that then encroaches on the side yard, which is an 8-foot minimum, and they're having 1 foot, which is existing or proposed, depending on how you look at it.
Okay, you plan to keep it exactly as is?
Yes,
Okay, if you made any changes to it, you'd have to inform us, right?
absolutely.
Okay. Do I have a motion on this application?
You open it to public?
I already did.
Make a motion that we approve the application?
I'll second.
We have a second. Have a roll call, please?
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Kreismer?
Yes.
Ms. Vitale?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes?
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Okay, your application's been approved. You get the resolution after next month's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Alrighty. Case number 16-28. Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, also just for the record, I've had an opportunity to review the affidavit of publication and proof of service, which are acceptable, and we just need a motion to deem it complete.
Do you have a motion to deem this app complete?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
due to conflict of interest, possible conflict of interest, I'd like to be excused. I'm
Okay.
the-
Yeah, Ms. Catallo has brought this to my attention, and that's fine. She believes it's a conflict of interest, and I don't want to prejudice the application or Ms. Catallo, so
Okay.
with your permission, Chairman, I believe Ms. Catallo should
Okay.
leave the dais.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Borough of Sayreville Zoning Board. My name is Jason Harlach. I'm from the law firm of Wisniewski and Associates. I represent the applicant Retlaw 967 LLC with respect to their application for major preliminary and final site plan approval and a conditional use approval for the property which is located at 967-969 Route 9 North in the Borough of Sayreville, also known as Block 440, Lot 3.01 and 3.01-B02. This is, for those of you in the town, the former Peter Pan Diner site. The application calls for the construction of a Wawa convenience store and gas station on the property. The property is zoned B3 for highway business, so the convenience store is a permitted use, but the gas station is a conditional use, and that is why we're looking for a conditional use approval tonight. Tonight you will hear from 3 witnesses, our engineer, Matt Sharrow, our traffic expert, Justin Taylor, and our planner, Paul Greigel. Also in attendance is the property owner and representatives from Wawa in case there are any questions for them. As jurisdiction has already been accepted, at the end of the hearing tonight, we're going to come before you and request preliminary and final major site plan approval and conditional use variance approval, along with any other waivers and variances that may be required for the property. So if there are no questions before I begin, I would like to call my first witness.
Okay.
Gonna call. If it's okay with the board, I know my engineer has some exhibits he's going to be using, and we have some smaller ones to hand out to the board for their review.
Should be enough.
We don't need this stuff.
All right, if we're ready, I'll swear in your witness. Sir, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the true self you got?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Sure. My name is Matthew Sharo, S-H-A-R-O. I am with Dynamic Engineering, located at 1904 Main Street, Lake Como, New Jersey. I am the civil engineer.
Mr. Shower, for the record, can you please describe your experience and expertise as an engineer?
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Hartford. I have about 15 years' experience in civil site.
We'll accept this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Testified before planning boards and zoning boards in the
Yes.
past? Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. Mr. Shower, can you please give the board a brief background as to the present uses and structures and conditions of the site in question?
I sure can. I'd like to first introduce Exhibit A1 to the record.
Just for the record, is there a title on that?
Sure. The title is Aerial Exhibit,
Okay, so
prepared by Dynamic Engineering, dated 1/25/2017.
You'll mark that as A1?
Yeah.
All right, so as Mr. Harlech mentioned, the site is the former Peter Pank Diner. It's been recently vacated. It is located on the northbound side of Route 9, about a half a mile north of Ernst Road. I'm pretty sure you all know the site. Excuse me. To the north of the site is a Verizon and I believe a urgent care building recently constructed within the last couple of years with the Taco Bell beyond. To the east of the site is Old Cheesequake Road with residential beyond that. To the south of the site is a 6-building apartment complex with commercial beyond that. To the west of the site is Route 9 with retail beyond that. In general, the site today has a pretty decent slope topography to it. At the south end of the site, we're to the north end of the site, we're looking at about a 35 to 30-foot grade change. It's important to note that for the proposed conditions. Existing stormwater for the site runs to Route 9 and to Old Cheesequake Road. The site is about 4.1 acres in size. About half of it is already impervious with the building and the parking, and the other half is existing wooded area.
Okay. Mr. Shower, did you prepare a site plan for this property
I did.
and for the application?
I did.
Can you describe it for the board?
Sure. I'd like to introduce Exhibit A2. This is entitled Site Plan Rendering, prepared by Dynamic Engineering, dated 1/25/2017.
Mark that as A2.
Yep. And while I'm at it, I will mark Exhibits A3 and A4. A3 will be the store elevations prepared by CMP Architects, dated 6/27/2016. And A4 will be the canopy elevation and trash compound elevation prepared by CMP Architects dated 6/27/2016. I'm going to start with A3, the building elevations. Application proposes a Wawa food market and fueling station. The food market consists of a one-story, 5,585 square foot building. The architectural elements of the building include a stone veneer facade along the bottom of the building with a tan ephes along the top of the building. At the center of the building, there is what they call the tower element. It's basically the trademark of the Wawa with it sticks up a little bit higher than the regular roof with a metal gable roof, excuse me, sorry. At the top of the tower, along the canopy, along the front of the store, and along the rear entrance of the store to the rear of the site. Excuse me. Deliveries to the store are proposed along the south side of the store, which include dairy products, food products, vendors for soda, candy, etc. The food groceries happen about 4 times a week by a tractor trailer. The dairy products happen about 3 times a week, and the typical vendors are 4 to 5 times a week by a box truck. I'd like to move to Exhibit A4, which shows the canopy. And these are all in the 11 by 17 packet that I provided. The canopy is the trademark of the Wawa development. It's what's known as a sloped canopy with a 14-foot clearance in the front and about a 25-foot clearance in the rear. Underneath the canopy houses 8 multi-product dispensers for fueling. Each dispenser has 3 grades of gas and diesel. Excuse me. The canopy itself also has that metal seamed roof that matches the building, as well as around the columns that stone veneer finish that matches the building. The trash enclosure also matches the building with the tan ephes and the stone veneer look around it. I did mention diesel. There is diesel fuel sales at this location. Each dispenser will provide diesel. They're low-flow nozzles and don't really attract the tractor trailers. In actuality, the attendants are told to let the tractor trailers move ahead and not fuel here. Excuse me. Next is and I'll resort back to A2, the site plan, is the underground storage tanks. They're located at the south end of the site, away from the building and the majority of the traffic happening. Excuse me. The tanks are 3 tanks. Each one is compartmentalized for the different fuel grades and the diesel. The tanks are fiberglass tanks, double-walled with an interstitial gap between the walls for monitoring. It far exceeds what's required by state and federal laws today. All right. So A2, you're looking at a colorized version of the site plan that you received in your site plan package, showing the landscaping and pavement and the metal, the roofing. Excuse me. Access to the site along Route 9 is via a right-in, right-out only access point. The right-in and the right-out driveways are approximately 18 foot wide that enter into the site right at the Wawa building. There's also another access point to Old Cheesequake Road. The driveway to there forms the 4th leg of the intersection with Dusko Road. Once you enter the site, the building and the parking lot circulate at the north end of the site. Circulation around the building it meets all your regulations, 25-foot driveways, which exceeds 25 and 30-foot driveways, excuse me. There's approximately 48 parking spaces around the building, 27 at the building, and then the rest around the perimeter of the building. All parking spaces exceed the township requirements at 10-foot wide and 18 to 20-foot deep. Then, as you move south in through the property, you'll hit the canopy. At the south end of the property, there's 30-foot drive aisles all the way around the canopy for easy maneuvering around the canopy while cars are fueling. There's also 10 parking spaces down there, primarily used for employees and people getting gas. At the south end of your site, there's an access driveway that runs down to the Old Cheesequake Road. It's pretty steep, so we've signed it with steep slopes, no trucks. We're not allowing trucks to head back that way due to slopes in the residential neighborhood behind. We don't want the trucks going there. I think that's about it with the layout of the property. The reason that we chose this layout with the canopy to the south and the building to the north for a couple of reasons. One, the canopy is the trademark of the Wawa. As you're driving north on Route 9, that's what you want to see. You want to see that canopy sitting there. So driving north on Route 9, first thing you're going to see is the canopy. Secondly, most of the circulation around the building and the majority of the vehicles and parking is happening at the north end of the site, away from the residential properties to the south. And thirdly, if you notice on this Exhibit A2, there's a big portion of green space in this back southeast corner. If we were to flip the layout, almost all of this green space, existing foliage, would go away. So that's why we chose to lay it out this way, just from an accessibility purposes and to save a lot of this green space that's existing today. All right. Move on to lighting. Basically, the site is designed for safety and security. There's a lot of these Wawas out here, and that's their major number one priority is safety on the site. So there's 15 area lights throughout the site, 11 of which are in the portion by the building and the canopy, and there's actually 4 area lights heading down the driveway to Old Cheesequake Road for safety purposes. The area lights are mounted at 20.5 foot high. All the fixtures are LED fixtures, high efficiency, all the new product out there. The fixtures actually have an internal house side shield as well, which blocks the light from emanating to the rear of the pole. The lights are all low profile design and top of the line. The design was to minimize impact to all property lines, not just the residents, not just the Old Cheesequake. It's designed to have low impact on all property lines. If you notice, there's zero light spillage over the property lines, and that's part of the deal is the glare and that excess light we like to maintain on site. And personally, that's what you get with the LED lights. You get that ability to do that. Also, we meet all the borough standards as far as lighting is concerned. Landscaping, as you can tell by the Exhibit A2, we've heavily landscaped the property around the perimeter of the site and maintained a big portion of the existing wooded area on site. Landscaping, we've planted a total of 778 total plants. That includes 79 trees, 265 shrubs, 221 ground covers, 213 perennials throughout the site. The landscaping provides shade trees along the southern property access way to Old Cheesequake Road, 2 rows of shrubs along Route 9, frontage to block headlights from Route 9. We've also included landscape beds along the Cheesequake entrance, as you can see here with the shade trees. and a bunch of evergreens along that entryway to block some of the site. Excuse me. And then around the sign in the front, we also included some low landscaping to make that an attractive look at the front driveway. We do have a couple waivers associated with the landscaping. The first one is the area of landscaping on site. Unfortunately, with all this landscaping, we're only allowed to include the planting beds as landscaping. So that's about 6.5% of the site. However, if you look at the total site, it's about 55% pervious area. So that means over half the site is either wooded or sod or landscape beds. So we feel we meet the intent of the ordinance there. Street trees, we do provide 4 or 5 street trees along Old Cheesequake. However, along the frontage, along this corridor, commercial corridor, for visibility and safety reasons, we didn't include street trees along there. And you know, the corridor doesn't have street trees along it anyway. For the same, it's a commercial corridor. Building plantings, basically they're a big nuisance. They get trampled on due to the heavy turnaround at a convenience store. You know, it's just easier to maintain without the landscaping around the building. And the fourth landscaping waiver deals with the 50-foot buffer to the residential use to the south. We are providing about a 32-foot buffer, 33-foot buffer. And within that buffer includes landscaping, graded hill acting basically as a screen to the landscape, to the residentials to the south. And also within the buffer, we don't have any structures, any parking. It's just a paved drive aisle that goes around the south end of the canopy. So we feel that, you know, we've met the intent of the buffer by including that landscape berm, not putting any structures over there, keeping it very clean and quiet to the south. From a stormwater perspective, we've met all local, state, SCD requirements. Actually, we've gone above most of them. Excuse me. Currently, stormwater that runs out to Route 9 will be collected on site, filtered through a above-ground detention basin, and controlled and discharged at a controlled rate to the DOT system. There's also a system in the back, underground system within the driveway of that runs down to Old Cheesequake Road. This detention system will control the rate of discharge to the existing stormwater system within Dusko Road. And I'd also like to comment that we will comply with all the engineer's comments in his recent comment letter in regards to stormwater. I'd like to move on to signage. We're proposing.
Actually, Mr.
Yeah, sorry.
Jay, you're okay with that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Our initial review, we had a number of stormwater comments. The applicant's engineer has addressed the majority of them. There are a few that remains, and he's indicated he can address them going forward.
The ones, just so you guys know, the ones that remain are obtaining additional information. Like groundwater elevations, all that kind of stuff that we will comply with upon approval.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry you were about
No,
to.
that's quite all right.
Yeah, the one part, excuse me 1 second.
Yes.
The one part going on to Old Cheesequake Road seems to be,
Well, there is an underground detention system, so he's going to control the rate of runoff onto Old Cheesequake Road. So there's a system that's going to go through and basically reduce what's going there now.
Yeah, currently, what runs to Old Cheesequake Road is just straight discharge to the roadway. We're going to be collecting all of that and discharging it to an underground basin, and then let that slowly discharge to the old Dusko Road
okay,
system.
thank you.
Yep. All right, signage. There's ID sign at the main driveway of the entrance. It's 106.5 feet in area, 27 foot in height, and has a 5-foot setback. Those were all chosen for site visibility and safety. Coming down that Route 9, as you know, there's a big grade change there. And having a sign of that size, that height, and brought to the property line closer is a huge, it hugely impacts the visibility of the site. You need that sign by that driveway. You need to be able to make that decision prior to getting to the site. Also, it's a commercial corridor, so we feel that the sign fits the intent of the commercial corridor.
Excuse me,
There-
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
While you're on, I got a question. for
Sure.
that. Are you saying that you necessarily need the 27 feet, or now that I see a detail of the sign, I think the sign could be lowered a little, if the proportion, could you lower it maybe by 2 or 3 feet?
We feel that the 27-foot was picked for sign visibility coming through that corridor with the big grade change coming down Route 9, and that's coming from north or south to north. We feel that that height, that area is specifically suited for this entranceway.
So you're saying to keep the visibility on the highway, you need the whole 27 feet?
Yes.
Thank you.
Continue.
I'd like to move on to facade signs. We're proposing 3 facade signs, one in front of, above the entrance, the main entrance to the building, one at the rear entrance of the building, and then one on the side of the building for visibility for cars coming down Route 9. The one in the front of the building is 67.6 square foot. The one on the side is also 67.6 square foot, and the one at the rear is about half that size at 36.8 foot. We're also proposing directional signs. There's 2, an enter and an exit, and those are located at the old Cheesequake Road entrance. And basically, they're in lieu of having a gas pricing sign there. We just want people to know that coming up that driveway, there's a Wawa.
Okay.
And there's also 2 canopy-mounted signs. Wawa has the canopy-mounted signs not on the facade of the canopy, but actually located underneath the canopy between the 2 inner columns at either end of the canopy. This is branding to make sure that people know that Wawa Food Market, Wawa Service Station. It's in lieu of the lit sign on the side of the canopy. So in conclusion, basically we're demolishing existing vacant use and putting up a state-of-the-art, Wawa Food Market and canopy fueling station. We're providing stormwater detention, which isn't there today. We're providing a very attractive landscaping scheme, which isn't there today. And we are using all energy-efficient lighting and green building materials in the construction of this. We're also removing, there are currently 3 access points to that site. We're removing all 3 and putting 1 access point to the site at the north end of the site for safety and visibility as well. Along with that, and the traffic engineer will hit on this too, we are providing a extended shoulder along the frontage of the site to help. It's not a decel lane, it's not an XL lane, it's just an extended shoulder so people don't feel so confined driving up to the site.
So, Mr. Sharrow, just to clarify a few things, you spoke about deliveries when you were talking about the other exhibits. Can you just show the board on there where the deliveries will take place?
Sure, I apologize. At the south side of the building, between the building and the canopy, is the loading zone. It's sufficient size and exceeds the requirements.
Could you just point on the map? that
Sure.
it's shown?
It's the yellow hatched area between the building and the canopy.
And can you just describe how the vehicles will enter and how the deliveries?
Sure. The vehicles, all truck vehicles and delivery vehicles will enter and exit off Route 9, as suggested. We're not, no trucks down that access way. So a truck will enter the site, will drive to the north of the building, around the rear of the building, and into the loading zone. Then along the front of the building and out onto Route 9.
Okay.
So while we're talking about that, can you
Mr.
just...
Harlech, before you start, I think some people are having difficulty seeing the.
Sorry.
Maybe we can angle the easel.
Could you just turn it a
Yeah,
little
no,
bit?
it's not a problem. I apologize.
I think the engineer probably has an extra copy, or not?
I don't know, I handed them all up.
We have an extra copy?
Yeah, here you go. Okay, continue.
Okay, while we're on that topic, can you just talk a little bit about the vehicular and pedestrian circulation within the property itself?
Sure, so vehicular circulation, all the drive aisles surrounding the building are 25 to 30 feet. All the drive aisles around the canopy are 30 feet, which is ample room to circulate the canopy and the building. Pedestrian-wise, we have access from Old Cheesequake Road. Currently, there's a sidewalk to nowhere that was installed with the Verizon and the healthcare building next door. So we're continuing that sidewalk up to our access point, and then having a sidewalk run from that point up to the main part of the development. Also, I'd like to add that as part of the engineer's comments, we will be adding a pedestrian sidewalk at the rear of these 10 parking spaces near the canopy, and that's just for
For the
pedestrian
store.
safeties for people accessing the store.
Okay.
Okay, and can you just describe the garbage disposal process?
Sure. The trash enclosure is located at the northeast end of the site. As I mentioned, the enclosure houses a dumpster that houses cardboard products and recyclables. The trash compactor, which is 6 cubic yards, state-of-the-art trash compactor, and a 8x10 shed. The shed is basically used for yard items such as shovels and rakes to help maintain the site, as well as a billy goat machine, which they use to actually vacuum the parking lot.
And how often is the garbage pickup?
Garbage pickup is for garbage, it's 3 times a week. Usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's very quick in and out. And then the cardboard is 2 times a week. Again, quick in and out, 5 minutes.
And what are the hours of operation of the store and the gas station?
Both are operated 24/7.
Okay, and how does that compare with the former use of the property?
24/7.
I know you spoke about the requested variances and waivers, and just to kind of summarize them and kind of put them all together, can you just go through what variants you're requesting and what waivers we're requesting?
Sure. So the first waiver is for hairpin striping. We believe that the oversized width that we provide meets the intent of the hairpin striping, so we'd like to prefer to stick with the standard striping of the one stripe. The hairpin striping is typically used at larger developments with seas of parking spaces that are much narrower, but we're providing that oversized. You know, there's not a sea of parking here, so we feel that the standard striping is effective here. Second variance is relates to the buffer along the south side of the site. We have a 32-foot buffer there that includes some landscaping, a graded hill that's about 10 foot high that effectively is a screen wall to the residents. Also, there's no structures or parking within that buffer. It's all outside that buffer. We tried to keep a majority of the action away from the residential.
Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. I know there are more, but just to comment, just to question you on that. I know we don't have a view of what it would look like from the residential there, but have you been able to kind of make a determination as to how the residential development is, the apartments are going to be affected by the changes here?
I don't think they will be affected with the plantings, the trees, the berm that we're installing. We're about a 10-foot grade difference between our parking, our drive aisle and the garage that's on the adjacent use. There's actually a portion, I'm not sure if you can tell from the aerial, at the south side, there's a portion of existing trees that we're leaving there. So I feel that that buffer will have no impact on on this. Also, it's important to note that there's no buffer there today. The existing parking lot goes right up to the property line.
And as far as the apartments in the residential there, which way do the windows of the apartments face?
The buildings, let me bring up Exhibit A1. Might help better with the visual. So A1 is the aerial exhibit. So as the building in the front here along Route 9 actually faces in a northeast direction towards the existing wooded area to remain. And the other building, obviously behind that, also faces that direction into an area that's not being disturbed by this project. And then the 4 other buildings are effectively screened by those 2 buildings. Also with this front building, there's a garage right along the property line.
That was my question. That structure that's right on the property line is a garage?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, if you can just continue with the
Sorry, nope,
variance and the waivers.
not a problem. Next variance, or actually waiver, was street trees. Per my testimony, we've included some street trees along Cheesequake, but due to the nature of the Route 9 corridor and the commercial use with visibility and safety, we have not included street trees along the frontage. However, we have included 2 rows of 3-foot shrubs to block headlights and cars and whatnot. Next one is I'm not necessarily sure this is a waiver or a variance, but we'll work out the tree replacement program with the engineer. It's one of his comments. We don't have a problem working out that calculation.
What's the percentage of the site that's landscaped?
Total landscaping, everything existing, lawn areas, everything, about 55%, over half.
Okay.
And the last waiver is the landscaping around the building. Again, it's just a maintenance issue here. They get trampled on. We have sidewalks that go all the 3 sides of the building that have parking on all 3 sides of the building. So we just,
Not gonna go.
yeah. Thank you.
John, yeah, I wanted to,
Just for the public's information, do you have any stores like this nearby? I think you do, but I'll let you answer it.
Route 34.
Woodbridge is probably the closest.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was at the Woodbridge one. Seems to work very well there.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the one on Old Bridge Turnpike
South River.
in South River,
Yes.
right before you get
That's
onto
the one
18
that
is
has the back.
The-
back end.
Yes.
okay.
All right, and then the variances, including basically the signage. I'll run through those real quickly, just so that. All right, let me find. So we have a variance regarding the size, the height, and the setback of the freestanding sign. We chose the location, the size, and the height based on this corridor for safety and visibility purposes. We feel that this sign and the height meet the intent of a commercial corridor like this, and the setback just gives it that extra visibility as you're driving up north on Route 9. The facade facade sign variances include the number of signs, the area of signs, and the max height of the sign. So the 3 signs on the site, on the building, include the one over the entrance, the one over the rear entrance, and the one on the side. All I feel are an integral part of the building, and I can show you Exhibit A3, which shows the signs in relation to the building. So the front wall sign is part of that front tower element I discussed earlier. The side sign on the south side of the building, and then the rear sign above the rear entry. The maximum height is approximately 5.5 feet, and that's on the sign on the side and the sign on the front. Directional signs, the size and the height, as well as the setback are variances here. Let me go back to Exhibit A2. So the directional signs are located at the old Cheesequake entrance. These are, the typical enter-exit signs that you see at a lot of the Wawas at their driveways. Again, we chose these for this location. If you notice, we don't have any in the front because of the signage in the front. We chose these signs just to let people know that there's the Wawa back there. And that's it.
Okay, so I know you hit most of these issues, but I'm just going to go through real quick if we can. Did you have a chance to review the township engineer's letter of January 25th of 2017?
I did.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through that letter with you real quick.
Sure.
Okay? So comment number 1 is with respect to additional government approvals, and those are all things that we will be obtaining, correct?
We're in the process of, yes.
Okay. Comment number 3 talks about the 50-foot buffer issue, which you've already testified to. I believe comments 4 and 5 are waivers that you did not address. Can we just address those real quick?
There's a couple elements to this. First is sidewalk along the frontage. This corridor, there's no sidewalk along any of the storefronts. We maintain that along our Route 9 frontage. As I mentioned, we did include a sidewalk that connects to the adjacent use of sidewalk to bring pedestrians up to our site. Second part of this, parking between. Okay, I think that was actually it.
No, so it was sidewalks along the frontage, which we talked about. Then we have sidewalks between the parking area and principal structure and along the aisles and driveways.
Okay. As I mentioned, the parking stalls to the south of the site near the canopy, we are going to install a sidewalk along the end of that, in front of those parking spaces, and that actually meets up with the sidewalk that comes from Old Cheesequake Road with a crosswalk that goes to the store. Other than that, the perimeter parking, there's no need because it's perimeter parking around the building, so people are going to be coming out of the stall and crossing the driveway to get into the Wawa.
Okay. Comments 7 and 8, will we be able to comply with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're going to go on to B, Section B, which is the sanitary sewer system. Can we comply with that?
Yes.
Okay. How about Section C, number 1? Can we comply?
We can comply. Just to note, there is no fire suppression system in this building. It's not required. But we will perform a flow test just to make sure that the flows are adequate at the hydrants here.
Okay. Section D talks about stormwater, storm drainage systems. There's 12 comments. I know you said earlier that we can meet all of those 12, correct?
We will comply with all 12.
Okay. Comment E, for landscaping and lighting. The first 3 talk about waivers.
I think you covered that.
I think one of them we did it, and I just want to double check.
I think we got all
No,
3.
we did, you're correct. 4, can we comply with that?
Yes, we will comply. We'll work with the engineer on the calculation.
Okay, and then finally, Section F, 1 through 4, can we comply with those?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and then can you just talk about number 5 a little?
Vehicle circulation. I think I hit this briefly, and our traffic engineer will also go into this in more detail. Basically, all trucks, majority of the vehicles will come in off Route 9, circulate to the north of the store, around the back of the store, and into the loading zone, then proceed in front of the store and out back onto Route 9. Fueling trucks will basically do the same thing. They'll come in, they'll circulate around the side of the store, to the rear of the store, around the front of the canopy and then to the fueling area. Basically, the reason they're going in front of the canopy is the fueling takes place, the fueling from the truck takes place on the passenger side. So the passenger side of the vehicle needs to be up against the curb line. From there, it will proceed around the rear of the canopy and then back out towards the entrance.
And just with respect to the turning lane coming off of Route 9, can you just talk about that a little?
Sure, it's a 12-foot wide shoulder. It's not a decel lane, it's a shoulder that pretty much goes across the entire frontage of the site.
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said in cross
And
what?
across the entire frontage of the site.
I have just a question about the gasoline deliveries. When are those scheduled for, how often? And also with your food deliveries as well, if you can give some testimony as to that.
Sure. The fueling is basically on demand. Probably, once a day, 5 times a week. And that's during off-peak hours, not, and again, on demand. Store deliveries will take place in the loading zone at the south of the store. Fresh groceries will about 4 times a week. Dairy product about 3 times a week. And then vendors delivering sodas and chips and candies and whatnot. They're, coming and going during the week, off-peak hours.
All right, so all the deliveries are during off-peak hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then just my last question with respect to the gas and fueling station. There are 8 pumps?
Yes.
So 16 different fueling sites?
Yes.
Are they all in operation at all times, or?
It depends on the demand.
So there are times when it's lighter demand that those will be shut down? And also, my assumption is it depends on who's staffing it and things of that nature. Who's staffing it, I apologize. That's all I have for Mr. Sharrow, if the board has any questions.
Okay. I just wanted to, I agree with the planner a little bit. I don't think that sign needs to be that high. I think that's an enormously high sign for the front there. It might be more of a distraction than anything.
We could take a couple feet off, maybe 20, 25 foot high.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
And I just was thinking about the apartments there. There's no way really if people wanted to go from those apartments into your place, right?
Other than walking
Like
down
if there
around
was
the
a little
front.
place by the storage where they could go through if there was a small sidewalk there.
The problem there is that we have that landscape berm, 10-foot landscape berm between the property and their property. So if people do want to, they can walk around to the front of the building, and down here, there's not as much grade change here.
Okay.
But there's no sidewalk over there, though, right?
No sidewalk. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the road in the back. You're saying that you won't allow trucks to drive up and down it. Explain why. Again, I know you said it was steep, but how steep is it, and is it that critical that you would have to eliminate trucks?
Well, there's 2 reasons why we're not permitting trucks to use the accessway. The first is just to keep trucks from using the old Cheesequake and Dusko Road network system back here with the residential lots. We don't want trucks going in and out of here. The second reason is the grading. There is some steep slopes along there, about 8%, which is within standard limits. So trucks going in and out of there. We just want to keep trucks out of there. So we've signed at the entrance here at Dusko Drive and at the entrance up by the fueling canopy. We've put in signs that said steep slopes, no trucks.
Thank you.
Just to note, we did make sure that fire trucks are able to access from that location for emergency purposes.
Hey, John, did they answer all your questions
Yes.
on the waivers? Okay. And
Can
you
I?
satisfied with
Can
that?
you-
Go ahead.
Can you take me through the traffic flow again? It's in off the highway, down the side of the building, around the back, and then if I wanted to go to the gas pumps, I continue around.
You could go that way, or you can come in the front and go in front of the building as well and get to the canopy.
Okay, is that going to be a conflict?
No, we have it's two-way drive aisles throughout the whole site. The circulation I was mainly explaining was for deliveries, to do that. But throughout the site, we have 25 to 30-foot drive aisles, two-way action on all of them.
Okay, now, if someone was coming around the back and pulling into the fueling station, and someone was coming from the front to pull in, that's not a problem?
No, there's plenty of room between the multi-product dispensers for cars to get in and out of there.
Okay, now, someone coming out that driveway, is there a stop sign or something?
There's
The entrance comes in off the highway, you're gonna have traffic coming in there, and you're gonna have traffic coming to
Sure.
the exit.
So there's two stop signs for cars in that situation that pull forward from the canopy towards Route 9 and make the right to get out of the site. At the drive aisle between the canopy and the store, there's a stop sign stopping traffic from driving past the store and the canopy. So these cars have free flow coming out of the canopy along the front of the store. Then, once you get in front of the store, there's another stop sign, and that's stopping cars from interfering with movements along the north side of the building and entering and exiting the site.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, one last question. How will the light affect the residents in the apartment complex? I guess more so in the first building. You talked about a berm and trees and things like that. Will they be able to see your building, say, the folks on the top floor?
I didn't do that analysis, but I couldn't for say sure, but we're definitely screening it to make sure that the least amount of impact from the canopy in the store affects those residents.
And I'm not an engineer, but we did talk about the fact that those buildings are turned that way, right? So the area that they're currently looking at is not changing, correct?
Yeah, so if I could, visually, there's the building, it's approximately right here, facing this way. So those windows face the existing wooded area and this landscaped area that we have proposed.
Yes.
Just to follow up on that, can you go over the lighting plan maybe just quickly to
Sure.
show where the diminishment of light is?
Sure. So the site and parking and drive aisles are all lit by area lights, LED lights. There's 11 within the main parking canopy building area. Then there's 4 along the drive aisle to Dusco for safety reasons. At the property line at Route 9, we have to meet 0.2 foot candles for NJDOT purposes. At the residential line, we are at 0.1 and 0 foot candles for a very small portion on the other side of this garage. So that model doesn't include landscaping, berm, or the garage in the model. And then the rest of the site, these lights along the driveway are blocked by the internal house side shields with the LEDs, as well as the wooded area behind it. And there's about 0.1, 0.2 foot candles along the frontage on Cheesequake. The reason for that is we need to sufficiently light the access point for safety reasons. And then along the northern property line, we're at 0 foot candles once you get to that northern property line.
Mr. Chairman, I just have 2 questions. There's no tractor-trailer parking areas on this site?
Nope.
Okay, because I know you have it at other Wawas. And how do we prevent tractor-trailers from coming into the site? Is there any signage that can be put on discouraging, just letting them know that there's no tractor-trailer fueling available?
We could put no tractor trailers, the tractor trailer symbol with the circle at the
We would put it
main
a
entrance.
little further down, right?
Sure, we could put it.
So that they see before they get to the entrance.
Sure.
And, traffic's heavy on 9.
That'd actually be, that's a great idea.
If I may, just one question.
Go ahead.
This is going to be a very busy location, which is great. However, was there any consideration about putting an exit further south, or an entrance rather further south, and an exit where the entrance and exit is there?
There was some
There's gonna be
consideration.
some accidents there, I'm telling you now.
There was some consideration. I'm going to let my traffic engineer, who's dealing with the DOT process along this frontage.
Okay.
Question. What do you mean by off-peak hours? Can you define that?
The busy hours are the morning and that evening hour. So Wawa likes to have their deliveries not during that time for obvious reasons, for conflict with, vehicles coming in and out of the store.
So it could be at 1 p.m.?
No. They tend to go during the day, but, fuel deliveries is on demand just for the logistics of fuel. And the trash pickup is always during daytime hours.
I think he said 1 p.m., not a.m.
Oh, sorry, 1 p.m. I thought you said 1 a.m., sorry. Preferred not during that time because it's part of the peak hour window, but.
Okay, so peak hours is like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
No, it's probably a 4-hour window in the morning and a 2 to 4 hour window at night.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We'll let the public speak after all their experts have gone through. Thank you.
I'd like to call Justin Taylor.
Thank you. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Justin Taylor, Taylor. I'm a principal with the firm of Dynamic Traffic.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, for the record, can you please describe your expertise and experience?
Yes, absolutely. I hold a bachelor's in engineering from the University of Delaware. I'm a licensed engineer of the state of New Jersey. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer through the...
We'll accept his credentials.
And Mr. Taylor, you've testified before numerous planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, I have.
Other boards of which I represent because I've seen you many times.
Yes, I have.
Mr. Taylor, did you prepare a traffic impact study for this property and application?
Yes, I did.
Can you please describe the results of that study to the board?
Yes, absolutely. As we've heard the previous testimony, the site is located along Route 9 northbound, just south of the Parkway and Bordentown Road. Being this a fact that it's on the state highway, we are really bound by the statutes of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. So we performed a study in conformance with what they would require to analyze the impact to Route 9. We also included within that study the impact to the Desco Road, Old Cheesequake Road, to ensure that we're not really going to have any impact or negative situations with the residents that currently live back there. What we found was, by conducting traffic counts along both roadways and then generating traffic based on the existing Wawa, what we find is that the driveways operate at good levels of service and in conformance with those DOT standards, as well as at level of service A in the back. We're talking 15 to 20 cars that are going to be going back through there. We intend that the vast majority of our traffic is actually currently on Route 9 now, and they're going to utilize it before they get on the Parkway or Route 35. So we really don't have a lot of traffic oriented towards the back, and the impact to the residents we feel really will be negligible. But the driveway along Route 9 does meet the DOT criteria for both capacity as well as geometric design. To hit a little further on some of the improvements that we're doing, the site currently has 3 uncontrolled right-in, right-out driveways up and down along the entire frontage. What we've done is we've consolidated them into one driveway at the northern end of the property. Now, the intent for that was really to give people the most time as they come over the hill to identify the Wawa, be able to get to where they need to be, and then slow down to enter the site. We actually looked at putting a driveway at the southern end, and we felt that it was actually better because it gives the drivers a little bit longer time to slow down and get where they're going to get into the driveway at the northern end of the property. So basically what we found with the study, that there really won't be that negative impact. The other thing we did take a look at was circulation. We've talked about circulation. I think Matt Shara did a really good job explaining the truck circulation. So I don't really need to belabor that point, but what we find is that the oversized aisles that Wawa does require allows for safe circulation of the trucks and the passenger vehicles throughout the site. To clarify a little bit further on those deliveries, what we really consider from a Wawa, the peak hours, somewhere between 6:30 and 8:30. It's not really a 4-hour window, it's much more of a 2-hour window as people are commuting on their way to work. They also have a busy time at lunchtime, so we find a rush between 11:30 and 12:30 or 1 that we typically would not look to have the larger vehicles on site, the delivery vehicles on site at that time. And then in the evening, the same thing. We have the commuting hours home. Now, this site, we don't intend a whole lot commuting home just because of its location on the northbound side. But those windows are a little bit more condensed. We're talking about 2 hours and then that lunchtime rush. To harp a little bit further too on the signage that we're proposing, I do agree that we probably can come down to that 25 feet and remain safe. But we are dealing with both a horizontal and vertical curve along Route 9 as you travel northbound. To refer back to A1, what we're really challenged with is you're coming up the hill as you travel northbound and turning to the left. The crest of the hill is somewhere in this area, and then the sign starts to become visible. So what we really need to do is identify the sign for vehicles as they're traveling along the motoring way. Gas stations are also a little unique when it comes to signage. Not only are you trying to identify that it's a specific use, it's the Taco Bell, it's the Starbucks, you're identifying the price point. And a lot of people shop their gas depending on the price of gas. So the drivers need to identify not only that it's a Wawa, but what the current price is and decide whether that's where they want to stop or they'll get their gas somewhere else. So what we really need to do is make that big visible for them and keep it in visibility for the longest time. So that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to increase the size a little bit, pull it closer to the road a little bit, just to give it that greater visibility so people can make that decision. And whether they're in the center lane or the left lane, identify, be able to get over safely and then exit the site. And the last thing we took a look at for the project was the parking. Now, your ordinance requires 28 spaces for the site. That would be 5 per 1,000 for the 5,500 square foot building. We're proposing 58 parking spaces for the site. And that's really, Wawa has come and has been doing this for a really long time. They've identified the amount of parking spaces they need for their customers, not to fill them all up, but to feel that the customers can come in, it's convenient for them to park right around the building and park their employees. So we feel that the parking that they're requesting or that we're proposing is sufficient to handle the demand of the project.
Okay, just going to draw your attention to the Borough Engineer's letter of January 25th of 2017. I believe there's just one comment that addresses the traffic for you to talk about, and that would be section F, comment 5. Can you just address that comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I believe both Mr. Sharrow and I have really talked about it. The vehicles will enter the driveway, be able to circulate around the building, and then they will pull back out. There is, on one of our truck circulation exhibits that's within the site plan, there does show some encroachment for the fuel truck into the middle lane as he comes out. That was an error in the drafting. We've taken another hard look at it, and we feel that he can, given the radii that are proposed, be able to turn out into the right-hand lane without any encroachment into the center lane.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the witness?
You know, I have a little problem with you saying they're shopping for gas prices going 55 miles an hour. You know, that's a little crazy to me. But the sign, I just want it to be, you know, so your purpose that they can see it. But, you know, I don't want it too high that it's a distraction. You know, that's my feeling there. And there's other stores, we got driveways, you got White Castle coming down there, you got the Florist coming down there, Taco Bell, and all that. So that's a little concern to me that somebody's looking like that instead of like that. Do you know what I mean? That if it's too high, I'm looking up like that at it. And you know, and you're coming down a hill.
Well, that's
at that
correct.
time too. So if it's a little lower, I'm looking directly at it, and I think it's a little easier. I just think, and the driveway scares me a little bit. I mean, I can't tell from a picture, but it looks like it should be, especially the entrance, a little wider, because all the trouble we have on 9 is like the sharper turns into, like Taco Bell has no driveway. You just gotta, you know, so even if you could extend, I just mean the entrance, if it could be a little wider coming in. So you see how you have the angle there? And if it was just a little further, I think you would get, you see what I mean? I think you would have a better.
You're talking right in this area
Right
here.
on that turn in. I think that would make things a lot safer. People fly down that road.
Oh, I understood. I traveled on a regular basis. What I would like to say here, what we're talking about, the aisle that we propose is actually 18 feet, where normally coming in, you're talking about a 12-foot or a 13-foot aisle. So by doing that, I think we've addressed that concern. It gives you a little bit, you can make a little bit of wider turn as you come in, at a little higher speed.
Only on the one side, not even the exit, just coming in.
Well, that's you know, so we're 18 feet on both of them. We'd have to take a look. DOT has criteria for how wide that's actually allowed to be. They have a maximum. We could probably look and maybe put in a 25-foot radius there. May fit, but I'd have to make sure that it doesn't exceed the curb line opening for DOT.
Yeah, I don't want, I just want it to be safe and right.
Our other concern was exactly that. People were traveling fast other than
Yeah,
at
to
8
turn
o'clock
in
or
there.
9 o'clock in the morning when it stopped dead. But, it's a
Yeah, it
high-speed
is
road.
sometimes, right.
And that was our thinking with providing that 12-foot shoulder. Just a place for people to get out of
Like I
the
said, I
travel lane.
can't tell it from a picture, it might be fine, but.
Mr. Taylor, what you're saying is that you could look into the possibility of having a 25-foot radius instead of a 20-foot radius, assuming the DOT standards are complied with.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just, like.
I mean, I'm not against it, I'm just saying I'd like it a little wider. Even pulling out, even as I pull out, if I have a better angle to go that way.
We did give, the 20-foot radii here are usually in excess of what we propose, just to give a little bit more comfort for these vehicles, because they are accelerating.
Same,
But I
as
can
long
take
as
a
it
look, see
meets
whether.
the criteria and stuff.
And then like our experts, I actually grew up in the area, so I'm familiar with the site. And if you're just thinking of it, try and just get a mental picture of it. That driver right now is on, I guess, almost where the exit is for the Peter Pank site now.
Right.
If you think of the whole Peter Pank site and where the entrance is, where further up the road, all that now is going to be that slow down drive aisle. So you're going to have the whole length of the Peter Pank site to slow down and then turn in. So I think the plan is hopefully that you're not going 65, that you're going 30,
Yeah, 25.
40 when you're turning in.
But the
You have
Peter
that whole
Pank
length.
had three entranceways.
Yes.
Two. One
Yeah.
was really an exit, but there were two.
People pulled out
Smaller
whatever
one.
they wanted. on
Which
it.
was, yeah. But now you have that one concentrated point, but that whole frontage where you used to have those other entranceways, those are gone, but it allows you to decelerate as you're coming in.
Yeah, I don't think that's, if it can't be done, it can't be done, but I don't think that's a big deal to widen it 2 feet on each side.
Yeah, it'd really just be taking the radius and seeing whether it would exceed the curb
Yeah, I
line
agree.
maximum.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When you do a traffic study, does that include how many people you anticipate to come in during your peak hours, say 6:30 to 8:30?
Yes, it does.
And what did you come up with that number?
So essentially, new to the roadway, what we're talking about is between 45 and 60 cars. That's who isn't there today. Overall, we anticipate about 100 cars during the AM peak hour, about 150 during the evening, based on the ITE standards.
100 in the morning per hour?
Yes.
You're saying?
During the busiest hour. So what we do is we neck down to the one peak hour. And so during that one peak hour, we're talking about a little over 100 cars in that morning. The data would say about 150 cars in the evening. I personally don't think this site's going to get as much just because of its location on the northbound side, but nationally, from the IT data, it would say about 150 during the evening peak hour.
Because most people that live around here, how, in the morning, it stopped in front of your building right there. And, I was a little concerned about how that would affect people getting out into that traffic, and are they going to let them out, or, what?
Yeah, in reality, I think it's probably easier to get out in the morning because people are doing 5 miles an hour, and they'll usually, if the first guy doesn't, the second guy will let you in. But what we wanted to make sure is even during the evening when it's a free flow of traffic along here, we ensured, that's another reason we located the driveway where it is to make sure that you have the sufficient sight distances to identify the cars coming over the hill and down to be able to make the turn out safely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
And just
Thank
one,
you.
sorry, I apologize. Just
Very good.
one, Mr. Taylor, just for the record, I know you talked about how wide that deceleration lane is. Do you know how long it is, the front of the property? Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's about 280 feet until you get to the driveway.
I just want to make it a little safer, that's all. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call Paul Greigel.
Mr. Greigel, please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the
Yes, good evening. My name is Paul Greigel, last name spelled Grygiel, principal of Phillips Price Greigel Planning and Real Estate Consultants.
Mr. Greigel, for the record, can you please describe your experience and expertise?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I have been since 1999.
I'll accept your
Thank you.
And you've testified before planning boards and zoning boards throughout the state of New Jersey?
Before over 130 boards throughout the state.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Greigel, are you're familiar with the application pending tonight?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, and have you done a planning analysis with respect to the application and the waivers and variances that we are requesting?
Yes.
Can you please testify to that before the board?
Yes, I'll cut right to the chase because the board is familiar with the site and has heard a lot of testimony regarding the proposal. But just very briefly, from a planning point of view, we're dealing with an existing commercial property of about 4 acres located on a state highway in an area that's primarily commercial. As we've heard, there was also some residential in the vicinity, but again, it's primarily a commercial area. The property is in the B3 zone, which permits convenience stores. It also permits gasoline service stations, but as a conditional use. There are 10 different conditions in your ordinance that need to be met for a service station to be permitted. 9 of them are met by the proposal. There's only 1 that is not met, so I can focus my testimony on that 1 deviation. This conditional use standard not met is that there's a requirement that a maximum of 3 service stations are permitted within a linear mile of a site. 4 would exist if this were to be permitted. So you have the existing, you have 1 on the northbound side already at Sunoco, and you have 2 on the southbound side. So really, in effect, we're dealing with just adding 1 extra to have 2 within the borough of Sayreville on the northbound side of Route 9. Other than that, in terms of zoning compliance, as we've heard, and as you've seen in Mr. Leon Cavallo's letter, the only other zoning requirements not met that require variances are certain sign standards. I think there's been adequate testimony with regard to those. So as far as the D3 variance proofs for conditional use, we need to demonstrate the positive criteria. And in this case, it's that even though the use does not meet all the conditions, that it can still be accommodated on the subject property. And in this case, in my opinion as a planner, the subject property can accommodate the service station use despite the requirement to only allow 3 stations within a linear mile. First, the site is generally appropriate. It's very large. It's commercially developed already. It also has adequate size for circulation and, for that matter, to accommodate all the other zoning standards. So in terms of setbacks, all of the bulk standards, we can meet those. Also, the zoning ordinance generally permits convenience stores as well as service stations on this type of site. In addition, as I mentioned, there's only 1 other service station on the northbound side of Route 9 within Sayreville. So really, if the intent is to not have a proliferation of gas stations, having 4 within a linear mile of Route 9 is really not a big problem from my point of view. I don't think there's any injury to the zoning ordinance or master plan from allowing 1 additional service station. Likewise, with regard to accommodating the use, again, we've heard testimony that 55% of the site would remain landscaped. There'd be trees plus new landscaping on the property. So all in all, the property can certainly accommodate this type of use. It's in an appropriate location on a state highway. So I think the positive criteria can be met for the D3 conditional use variance. With regard to the negative criteria, that there's no substantial detriment to the public good, the applicant is proposing to remove an existing vacant commercial building and to add landscaping, to add new signage, a new building, essentially a whole new use that is appropriate for this type of location. It's reinvesting in the borough. It also is providing up-to-date drainage, landscaping, lighting, things that don't exist today. Everything that's outdated will be removed and replaced with new state-of-the-art features in terms of engineering, site design. In fact, with regard to runoff, as we've heard, it would be reduced from existing conditions. So I think for that reason, there would be no substantial detriment to the public good from allowing the 1 additional service station on this stretch of Route 9. With regard to the second part of the negative criteria, in my opinion, there would be no substantial detriment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. The B3 zone, again, permits service stations generally. I think it's an appropriate location. Your zoning ordinance does as well. There'd really be no substantial detrimental impact on your zoning efforts by allowing 1 additional service station on a property of this size in this location. So I think that for both the positive and negative criteria, they have been addressed by the applicant for the D3 conditional use variance. Just lastly, with regard to signage, I won't go through all the testimony you've heard already, but in my opinion as a planner, the signage variances can be granted under the C2 criteria, that the benefits of allowing some deviations from sign standards outweigh any detriments because of the property's location on a state highway amidst other commercial uses with similar size signage. You do have some site-specific conditions with regard to topography and visibility that were testified to by the applicant's engineer and traffic engineer. So I think what's proposed is appropriate for this type of use. The standards in the zoning ordinance for service stations are really geared towards an old-fashioned repair garage that you typically don't see anymore. So for a more modern facility like this with a mix of uses, what's proposed in terms of height of signs, setbacks, area, those types of things, all are in line with the existing commercial character and what is typically expected for this type of use. So I think for that reason, the C2 variances can be granted for signage as are proposed with the amendment to reduce the sign height somewhat for the freestanding sign. And that concludes my direct testimony with regard to the variance proofs.
Mr. Grego, you able to review the township planner's letter of December 12th, 16, and his updated letter of January 25th of 17?
Yes.
And I believe that any and all issues that were addressed in that letter, you've just touched on in your testimony?
I believe so.
Yes. John? So with that being said, are there any questions for the witness?
Anybody have any questions?
I have one question. Probably doesn't mean anything, but the prior owner of the property appeared before the board with a proposal to erect a digital billboard on the site. Are there no plans for anything like that?
So, not to get too much into someone else's proposal, my client does not own or the billboard in question. It's still owned by the prior property owner, so we really don't have any say or input as to what happens to that billboard. I understand that's what he was looking to do, but it doesn't involve us. He has an easement to the billboard. It's still our property, though.
Yeah, he would still have to come in front of us.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, he came in front of us for an informal application. That's correct.
And just for the record, while Mr. Gryville is here, as most of you are probably aware, before there started to be that development just north of us where the Starbucks is and where the healthcare facility is, there was a gas station that was there at some point in time that's no longer there. So obviously, there was two along the Route 9 property before this.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Have a motion open it to the public?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay. Just before you come up, direct all the questions to the chairman or anyone on the board here. Okay, anyone like to speak on this application?
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Kushner. I represent Crestview Apartments, which is the development to the south side, I believe, of this particular proposed project. We have an engineer who's taken a look at these.
Because you're just talking to the microphone.
Thanks. We've had an engineer who's taken a look at these plans. They have certain concerns with regard to the impact on the residential property and on the residents of that property. I'd like to give that individual an opportunity to make those comments and inform the board as to what those concerns are. One of the difficulties that we face.
Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
No problem. One of the difficulties that we face is that, as you can see, this is a fairly complex project. A lot of work has obviously gone into the project. There's been a lot of discussions, obviously, between the township engineer, the various experts for the applicant. Unfortunately, while our engineer is prepared to move forward with comments today, what we would like is to have a little more time to vet this application so that we can present to the board all of the concerns that we think the board should have before it makes a decision. But having said that, we are prepared at least to present what we have now and the engineer can best describe what additional information and reports he feels would be necessary in order to fully vet this project, so that the board has complete information before it makes its decision.
Mr. Kushner, is your engineer here this evening?
He is.
He is, okay. Because, quite frankly, the only requirement from a notice standpoint is that the applicant notify all owners within 200 feet of the property, and obviously that would be your client. And that has to be done at least 10 days before the hearing. And I'm looking at the notices, and those notices did go out on January 13th from the certified mailings. So that is at least 10 days before the hearing. And pursuant to Section 12 of the Municipal Land Use Law, that satisfies that requirement. Secondly, notice was published in the Home News Tribune in accordance with the Municipal Land Use Law, Section 12. And we have proof of that. So, I mean, it's strictly up to the applicant. If the applicant wants to provide you with additional time for your engineer to review it, but quite frankly, the intent of the Municipal Land Use Law, and particularly with the notice provision, is that if you have 10 days notice, you certainly have that 10-day period within which to review any plans. And my next question is, I'm assuming you probably were aware of these plans even prior to that, right? Or your client was.
So let me address that second question
Sure.
first. The applicant did notify my client back in October of 2016 that it was planning to move forward with this application. At that time, what I'm told is that my client responded to that letter. Mr. Abramson, who's the president of the company, responded to the letter and said, I understand that you're making this application. I'd like to see your plans. And what he was told, according to Mr. Abramson, is that the plans aren't finalized yet, but when they are finalized, we'll present them to you. That never happened. Mr. Abramson was never notified that the plans had been finalized, and he was never advised that the plans were available for his review. I understand that there was an effort made to provide the public at, I'm told, the firehouse. I don't know where that is, I'm sorry. But to review this with them, but I'm told that those plans have since changed, so that even if those plans had been reviewed, they're not the plans that are presently pending before the board. So my client did have significant interest, obviously. I mean, they own an apartment complex of about 170 some odd units right next to this property, so they're obviously concerned, for themselves and for the residents in terms of what the impact is. And they attempted to address that issue. Now, with regard to the second issue, with regard to the notice provisions, we're not disputing that the notice provisions, hadn't been satisfied. I believe, nonetheless, that some projects are just more complicated than others, and some projects some projects can be properly vetted, within that 10 days. Some projects, can't be properly vetted within that 10 days. We've asked if this project could be, whether or not the applicant would be willing to adjourn this matter so my client's experts, engineer, could take a look at it, discuss it with their people, see if we could come up with some agreements. Unfortunately, they declined to do that. So we come here before you somewhat prepared, not as fully prepared as we would like, but somewhat prepared to present the concerns that we have with regard to some of the issues that the board themselves has raised regarding the landscaping, the buffering, the lighting, some of the other traffic conditions and so forth that have been talked about. We share similar concerns. So, what we'd like to do is present those concerns to the board from another expert, so the board will have an opportunity to hear that. The board may decide, hey, we'd like to hear more after you've had an opportunity maybe to take a further look at it. Maybe the board will say no, that they've heard enough. But we just want that opportunity, and that's what we're asking for tonight. And like I said, we have Mr. Nassim is here. He's prepared to discuss this with you and move forward. But I totally understand what you're saying about the notice provisions under the
Yeah, I mean,
ordinance.
that's all that the municipal land use law requires, and as well, in any type of notice that goes out, and even in the one that was published in the Home News Tribune and the one that your client received, it also states that the applicant, I'm just reading the last paragraph of the notice, The application and the plans are on file in the office of the Zoning Board of the Borough of Sayreville, 167 Main Street, Sayreville, New Jersey, and are available for inspection during normal business hours. So, you know, not only your client, but anyone else who was affected within 200 feet had the same opportunity to review those plans. But notwithstanding, Mr. Chairman, if the applicant wants to present what I guess we would call an objector's case through their counsel and their engineer, that's fine.
Mr. Sachs, if I can just respond to a couple of the things that were said. First, I didn't go through this at the very beginning because jurisdiction was accepted, but just for the record, for the purposes of jurisdiction, an affidavit of service of the application was mailed to Mr. Sachs and the zoning board on January 17th of 2017, showing publication in the Home News Tribune on January 12th of 2017. Additionally, on January 13th of 2017, correspondence was sent via first-class mail and certified mail return receipt requested to all property owners within 200 feet of the property, as well as the Middlesex County Planning Board, the Department of Transportation, the DEP, and the appropriate utility companies.
No, I have that, Mr. Hurley.
And as Mr. Sachs said, the land use law requires only that notice, and we've hit that notice. Actually, we did 12 days and not 10. Even on top of that, though, we did reach out to all property owners back, and on October 4th, my client signed the letter, came out through my office, to all property owners on that 200-foot list, saying, introducing ourselves, saying this is what we're planning to do with the property. This is above and beyond what needs to be done by statute, but we sent that letter out and said, on October 12th, we're going to have a meet and greet at the Madison Park Firehouse over on Cheesequake Road. Everyone's welcome to come, see the plans. We actually had these exhibits there to anyone that wanted to come. We had 3 phone calls. One was from counsel's client. He stated to me, spoke directly to me. He said, I cannot make the October 12th meeting. I have a conflict. I'm actually going to be appearing in another land use hearing. I said, that's fine. We had some other people who can't make it. We're willing to set up another meeting, your time, your choosing. We'll meet with you. We'll answer all your questions. We'll show you the plans. He stated, I don't want to do that. I'd rather you just send me the plans. I said, I cannot send you plans. We will show them to you, but until they are 100% finalized, we can't have plans floating out there. They're Wawa's plans, and come to us and we will show them. Never heard back from him. He never took me up on the offer. We were more than willing to meet. We had that October 12th meeting. Only one person came. It was the owner of actually the Dairy Queen across the street. My client, Mr. Pereira, actually had a phone call and meeting with the owner of the urgent care building at another date and time because he couldn't make the October 12th meeting, and also a property owner on Dusco Drive who he met with privately to show the plans. As far as the plans changing, the plans that we showed that night were the plans that we submitted to the borough. As a result of the submission, we had a technical review with the borough professionals, and they requested some changes. I believe the professionals can probably speak to it. The changes to the plans are minuscule as far as the layout goes. Probably 90 to 95%, and that's a lawyer guessing, but of the plans roughly remain the same from as they were that day. So from my client's point of view, everyone's had notice of this for the last 4 months. The statute only requires us to have the 10 days. We're not looking to be adversarial. I was hoping I would hear about this a week ago. We could have figured this out. We heard about it yesterday for the first time about this objection, asking us to adjourn. Because of, because of my client's agreement with Wawa, because of the financing of everything, we can't adjourn this meeting. I've been informed by the board that an adjournment would take this out 2 meetings because next month is already filled up. That's why we're here tonight, and we're looking to finalize this tonight.
Can we have a session in that meeting?
We can take a break if you want. Okay. And we can just sit here when we're not close.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, all right? Can I get the okay from the board? I got a second. All right.
Take a 10-minute break.
Okay. Just give us 10 minutes. Shut your mics off.
The other engineer is addressing it, throwing up the board.
Right, and he's talking about landscape, oh, we did it.
He's concerned about the landscape, because he asked me before the meeting, he said, why are they sugar maples, why aren't they? I would think so, and I said, you know, whatever.
You can resend it.
But I know, like, it's like, hey, listen, we represent Salem, but, you know, who knows the people.
I agree. Right. People do have a right to be heard, I get it. But you know, quite frankly, you know, this is but for the fact that you have that archaic, and I call it archaic because it's been there a long time, you know, with the gas station.
Right.
This would be in front of the planning board.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
this would be the planning board.
But he's right. There was a gas station right next door, so it's similar to
That's what I'm
that.
gonna tell you. You gotta, you wanna state the complaint as yourself.
I don't think you understand. Let him put his case on. That's all. Let him bring his engineer up, and we'll attack the plan, and that's it. You listen to it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right?
Yeah.
Let me tell these guys. Not possible. I want to seem to be bending over backwards.
They were, yeah.
To make it acceptable as well.
Well, that's what they wanted to be upfront and meet with everybody and say, this is what we're doing, if you have issues.
Present what they have, and then
They
we'll
will
go.
look at these plans and say, yeah, determine quality of life, and say, well,
Right,
look at
right.
the plans.
Benefits that, all right?
Right.
So that's not what I'm gonna say.
Fine, yeah.
Okay.
Since I've talked to them, like, say, look at the plans.
Was that? Yeah, I guess we're not the council.
Will you tell us when you're ready? No, you tell us when you're ready. Whatever happened to the quick check business?
That's a good question. They've never addressed the conditions of the approval. So, I don't know what they're, every,
Run its course.
what check? Every so often, I'll hear something saying that they're gonna be resubmitting to address the items. They were waiting for outside agency approvals, and I never get anything, so I don't know.
It's
what their
just
timeframe is.
sitting there.
Yeah, everybody else is gone at this point, except for Quick Check.
Because
Time I
the,
saw a surveyor out there.
Yeah, yep, they've been doing different things. I don't know if it's with the county or what.
the employees were told that they were gonna modernize the building. Now, I don't know if that meant the whole
Their plan that was
mini
approved.
mill or just the building that
They were
had. Just-
demoing that building and putting up a new one.
Yeah, it was gonna be a whole.
Right, yeah.
My concern the whole time was I looked in the back, they were proposing deliveries.
Right.
And there was a very tight space between Bank Road
Right, yeah.
and deliveries.
Right. But by then, it's making the building smaller, and there's
Right,
more room to
yeah.
be able to do that.
Because that Bank Road became very notorious.
Yeah.
I saw her hands getting tired.
Staged 3 robberies from
Right,
that
right,
road.
yeah, yeah.
I was just talking to the.
Hey, John, what did you say about the quick check? Is that on delay or?
I don't know. Every so often, I'll hear something that they're gonna be coming back in, because they never addressed all the conditions of approval. So
Oh,
we're still
yeah?
waiting for them to address the items.
Oh, okay.
Yes, every so often, I'll hear them that they're
But it
gonna.
got approved.
Oh, yeah,
Now
it
they
was
just gotta
approved.
submit
They
new
have to address their
plans.
conditions, yeah.
That water safe?
Safe. Awesome.
You check the lid?
There's a new manager.
Got the lead report.
Kimber.
I don't know how to pour it.
Up at the incident.
Okay.
Mailed me.
Right.
I went to office. They had. Over my face
For you.
And
Thank you, sir.
my thinking is,
Oh,
I want
beautiful.
to get done as quick as I can. So I'm saying I'm going to run into the bank, drop the mail.
Yeah, come down a little.
Don't run into the bank with a mask over your face.
Good advice, right?
My wife's had it. She's
Ellie
been home
had
for
the
the last
manager
couple
at
of
the time
days.
fainted. I says, did you see the postal uniform? She says, no.
Just a
I
quick
saw a
question.
man with a
You
mask.
have to pay for that.
Then I played it back to the
You're sure? Nobody
big
gave you
branch.
a
Okay. Sign on the branch manager.
Let's check it. Let's see.
She goes, who the hell? And I remember I was delivering on Bordentown, and all of a sudden there's 3 helicopters over, and I see the Old Bridge Police Company.
You don't have to do that no
Yeah,
more, you go on
somebody
your
hit the
phone,
bank
which is
again.
the cheapest gas station.
Pat, you have to sign this, your oath.
Your oath.
that other meeting? Well, instead of
I have to put it in the clerk's office
Oh,
before.
you even got a car. Busy.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, funny is the things they said they weren't gonna do about having tractor trailers in there.
Yeah.
Are you going to this
You'll see 'em blocking
concert?
Well, that's one problem. The other problem is.
Yeah, probably. 18th.
It's a one
What is
way.
St. Patrick's Day?
The
Is
bid,
that?
17th.
I know that, but
But
what
the
day?
parade's the 19th, and the night before we go to that.
Every day. I don't
Okay,
even want
so
to count days.
Friday is the 17th then.
Right.
Okay.
Exiting out of that entrance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The guys from the Shillelaghs, should I write Patrick or Pat? They only put Pat there.
I would put Patrick.
Because of the peak,
Sounds just like my
traffic.
mother.
Make a left turn out of that mall on the Bordentown is tough to do. It's impossible.
Yep.
On the day, what day did I get sworn in?
Actually, you hope they get backed up, because then somebody can give you a break.
Yep, yep. Coming out of our driveway at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Same type
Oh,
problem.
God, yeah, when you, if
You
you
sit
guys are
there
leaving
and
at
get
5
the
o'clock,
on the
you
11th.
left, you gotta.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, the mass is the same day as the parade.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
I bet.
No, because I know I'm right.
Had, when the
Well,
house
I'm
was
asking you to
converted.
bet then you'll win money. The day of the parade, we go to mass.
The day of?
The day of the
17th?
parade.
No.
We go to the mass, then we go to City Hall, and then we go to.
No, no. That happens on the 11th, it's a Saturday. They do the flag raising. They get the mass, go down there, do the flag raising, then they have breakfast. That's the 11th, that's Saturday, before the parade.
The week before the parade?
Yeah, it's changed last year, because I guess the cops wanted to have it
Really?
not on St. Patrick's Day, keep
That the
the
paper street?
rowdiness
That's your
down
asking?
and stuff like that.
I know they wanted that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why they did it on Sunday.
Thank you, John.
But they kept the mass and everything else
Right.
the Saturday
Well,
before
on
St. Patrick's
19,
Day.
on Nobles, they keep no child. I stop them when I'm going down to Nobles.
Whatever it is. it
Everybody
is.
here? Let's get wrong here.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And they have that as they.
For 10 minutes now?
Yes.
Everybody back in the room.
You can get in here.
I'm a longshoreman, you guys listen. Uh-oh.
Pat,
Huh?
Larry's in there.
Larry's right there.
Who's in there?
Nobody's in there. I don't think.
I don't have my glasses on. Helps my back, believe it or not.
Larry, you have to sign this.
He swore me in. Okay. All right, we're not gonna adjourn this, we're gonna hear it, okay? But I'll give you the opportunity to present your case. Okay?
So, I have Mr. Nader, Wasim Nader, who is an engineer, who's qualified, he's really well.
All right.
He will be my case.
You want to bring him
Okay.
up, Mr. Nader, come on. Mr. Nader, can you please raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, professional affiliation for the record.
It is Wasim Y. Nader. I'll spell it W-A-S-S-I-M.
Use the mic, please.
Sure,
Thank you. Middle initial Y, last name Nader, N-A-D-E-R.
Okay, and your professional affiliation?
I am a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey. I represent my own company, the Nader Group. We are situated in Hackettstown, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to qualify him, that's fine. Mr. Kushner.
Have you appeared before other, and qualified before other zoning or planning boards in the state of New Jersey?
Many, yes.
And are you, and what are your other qualifications with regard to your area of expertise?
Well, I'm a general civil engineer. I've done many site plans in the past. I
obtain
I
my...
will accept this.
Okay, thank you.
You're a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, and you've testified before numerous planning and zoning boards in the past?
I have, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Mr. Harlech, do you want to voir dire him, or you're okay? Okay.
No, I'm fine with him.
Thank you, okay.
So Nader, have you had an opportunity to review, tell us what you've had an opportunity to review and when you had the opportunity to review it.
Well, I've had the opportunity to review the plans today. I was informed about this project yesterday, and I made an attempt to come down, which I did today, down to the zoning board, and I was gracious to the zoning board members, and not the zoning board, but the zoning official, and the secretary, to allow me to review the plans and take a look briefly at the report that was generated by the engineer.
Based upon your review of those plans and everything you've seen, and you've also heard the testimony tonight from the engineer of the applicant, correct?
Correct, yes.
Based upon what you've seen, based upon the testimony that you've heard, do you have problems or concerns with regard to the applicant's plans from an engineering perspective in terms of its impact on the Crestview Apartments?
I do. I mean, it's a difficult situation to just simply, ad hoc what's going on with this project without doing a detailed review of the plans and detailed review of the reports that were presented, and being able to be afforded the opportunity to review what your professional had been able to review. But nevertheless, the situation is as follows. We have a fueling facility, a major convenience facility that is being proposed adjacent to a 171 apartment unit complex. The layout is basically not conducive or taking into account the adjacent apartment complex. You've got the fueling facility that is situated almost along the property line, on the southern end of the property line of this project, and with the tanks that are even closer to the apartment complex. That's a safety hazard. That's number one. Number two, we have a deceleration lane, although the testimony tonight specifically stated that it's not a deceleration lane, but it is a dotted lane. They're paving that lane that will present an opportunity for motorists and commuters coming up on Route 9 at 55 miles an hour to slow down, to move away from a traveling lane and work their way into that driveway. Mind you that our driveway, that is the only driveway that accesses our apartment complex, is immediately south of that. It's probably about 50 feet plus or minus from that deceleration lane. The ability for the tenants within that apartment complex to come out safely from the apartment complex and access in a accelerated speed to catch up with everybody coming up on Route 9, especially in peak hours from 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning, is going to be difficult as people coming up on Route 9 slowing down to access this facility. So there's definitely a conflict from a traffic perspective from our property and from their property with the acceleration and the deceleration. The proposed buffer that is called out, at least on the plans, from what I can see on the plans, is a row of 3-inch caliper sugar maples. Basically, a 3-inch is this big. That's the buffer that they're talking about. That 3-inch caliper is going to take close to about 10, if not 15 years to mature and grow, and does present a buffer, a true buffer between their facility and our facility. The lighting, again, I haven't seen necessarily an elevation of the fueling facility. I've seen an elevation tonight of the building, but not the fueling facility. I don't know, relative to the two buildings that face this facility, what happens in that situation. In addition to that, the lighting spillage, granted that they've done the calculations as everybody does with the computer modeling, and about maybe 20 feet into our property, we have a 0 spillage from the lighting. They're facing their property, fair enough. However, though, again, the lights that are within the canopy that are directly pointing down into the fueling facility, how is that going to basically be handled with the people within the apartment complex? I strongly suggest that a profile be drawn from our the windows or the balcony of our apartment complex down to the fueling facility to see how will that impact it. Yes, there is a garage, but that garage can only present a break in the vision for a certain limited area, not entirely the two buildings that we're looking at. I heard in testimony tonight that the engineer, I believe, said, or maybe the traffic engineer said, that someone from the window, and the windows are basically facing in a different direction. Well, that's true. The windows may be facing in that direction, but a person inside the window can basically turn their body to face the facility. It's not that they're only going to be looking in a northwesterly or northeasterly direction, for that matter. Why is the driveway facing the street, coming off the street in the back of the property? Why not take the driveway from the end of the pavement at that location before it turns into a paper street and bring it up into the facility? Like I said, I have a whole list of comments. I have probably about 2 or 3 pages of comments on this project, and it's very difficult to go through each and every one of them in detail tonight without affording me the opportunity to look on the plans in more
I can answer
detail.
that. They met all the requirements. And if you were that concerned, it should have been done earlier. That's what I'm telling you. How long did you work on it today?
Today?
Yeah.
Well, I had to cancel about 3 meetings today to be
I
able to
don't,
come down.
I really don't care about that.
worked
How
on-
long did you work on it?
I was down here at the building for about an hour and change, and then after that I left, and I spent another half an hour, 45 minutes on a conference call, and about another hour and a half doing my own review. So in total, I would say about a half a day.
Okay.
And obviously, the travel from up north down to here and back up and back down.
I don't
so
care about that.
Constitutes a whole day.
I know,
understand.
I'm not
You're-
trying to be mean, but I
No,
don't
no,
care
yeah.
about that.
I understand.
Okay. Just, present and see what, what we can do about it like you are. Are you done?
Just take a look. I did. Again, the hours of operation, it's a 24-hour facility. We've talked about that. The, on the plans that I reviewed today, it shows the circulation pattern that is based on on an 18-wheeler that's coming off of Route 9, getting into the facility, making a turn through the facility and out, as well as a...
No 18-wheelers.
Yeah, there's no tractor trailer.
No 18-wheelers
I
allowed.
thought it was a WB50 that
No,
was
there's
shown.
no 18-wheelers. And they're putting us up a sign.
Okay.
Address that.
All right.
Maybe, what's the largest wheelbase of a delivery truck?
Yes.
That's a WB50, okay.
Okay, you can
All right,
continue.
and also a fueling truck that will also make it into the facility. But they do show it coming off the right lane of Route 9, although they're designating the lane adjacent to the facility as not a deceleration lane, but that is presenting a conflict whereby a truck that's making a turn in and somebody that's decelerating coming down the lane that doesn't see the truck and the truck makes a turn, you definitely have an issue at that location. The odors that would be coming out of the facility, being that it's adjacent to the apartment complex. Like I said, the detail of the fueling station, and we talked about the sidewalk. I'm still not clear why a sidewalk cannot be provided to allow for residents to access this new facility. We know that they will be seeking to use access into that facility. And if there is no sidewalk, they're not going to be able to make it. So I don't know what the issue would be with having an access from our facility into their facility.
I'm just trying to write this down.
I understand.
Go ahead. You have anything else?
Yes. Mr. Nader is just checking his notes with regard to whether or not there's anything else that he wants to bring to the attention of the board. Let me give you that.
I didn't get clarification on delivery, although they did mention that it is not coincidental to the peak hours from 6 to 8 and from 11 to 12:30, but we still don't know what time are deliveries.
Well, I don't think they can give you an exact number. Is there a certain time? I mean, you got to tell me, is there a certain time you don't want deliveries or something? You got to tell me why,
Well, certainly nighttime delivery should be prohibited. Anything past 8 o'clock at night should not take place.
Well, actually, right now, Mr. Nader, this is a 24/7 site. It's a diner. Presumably, they could get deliveries at any hour of the day without restriction, because they're not in front of this board at this particular point in time. No, that's not what I said, Counselor. I said it's a 24/7 facility that does get deliveries, and they could get them at any particular point in time. That's all I said.
Much lower impact nature of deliveries for a diner there than.
I would imagine it would be, yes. Okay. Again, I don't think there's been testimony as to the intensity of the deliveries. I think they said it's on demand. So if your question is, would you request that deliveries not occur during certain hours, that may be something you may want to ask the applicant.
I just want to ask you a question, Mr. Nader. In the testimony of Mr. Shara, he testified that they're seeking a waiver because the buffer is less than the buffer required by the ordinance. And his testimony was that that's going to be enough because they have a graded hill, there's no structures there, and because of, you mentioned landscaping. So I'd like to know, in your opinion, is that 32-foot buffer, the waiver that they're seeking, are those conditions sort of enough to satisfy and support that type of a waiver, or can they do, or could more be done, in your opinion?
I'd like the engineer to point out where that 32-foot buffer that's being violated is located at.
Excuse me. The 31.5 foot from the property line to the edge of the stone that goes around the underground storage tanks.
Well, considering that I believe in testimony was given that 28 parking spaces were required and 58 were provided, I think there is definitely ample space to try to do some modification to get to that 32 foot, since it's only 6 inches. I don't see why that buffer would need to be reduced to 31.5 as stated.
Because that's the waiver he asked for.
And the buffer's 50 feet, not 32, the requirement.
Right, so in other
Okay.
words, the buffer's supposed to be 50 feet, they're only offering 32, but they're saying it's okay to use 32 because we've got all these other things that are going to make it okay. Is it your opinion that all those other things are going to make it okay?
In my opinion, no.
And why not?
Well, because the site is basically overused. There's plenty of opportunity to make modifications, as I stated earlier, with maybe taking that fueling station from where it's located, moving it over to the left side of the property, and moving the convenience store over to the right side of the property. And eliminating some of the parking may simply eliminate that requirement.
That's what you
for
were
the
asking,
buffer.
that we move that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Proper engineering would have called for putting that fueling station over to the left instead of the right and away from the apartment complex.
Why is that? You say proper engineering.
Well, as I stated, again, you've got lighting, you've got buffer, you've got noise, you've got odor, you've got safety and security, you've got 24-hour operation. Need to say more?
All right, well, I know you've only had a limited opportunity to review the plans and the reports that have been submitted, but is there any reason from what the limited review that you've had that you see would support the applicant's plan not to do it that way, but to put the gas station near the residences? In other words, anyway, I think I've asked my question. Do you have anything seeing why they didn't do what you suggest they should have done using basic engineering ideas?
Oh, in my opinion, I didn't see anything that would have prevented modification to the site to put the fueling station over on the left-hand side of it.
With regard to
Just before we go on with that, we had engineers working on it and planners and everything else since when, John? How long we been doing this?
5 months.
Oh. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, continue.
I don't know if the engineers, and with all all due respect, I don't know if the engineers and planners took that into consideration. They may have, but we haven't seen that. So if they did in fact take that into consideration, we'd like to know about that, and then why they rejected that as an option.
Well, you're assuming, well, let's slow down for a second. You're assuming that there was an alternate plan that was submitted. I think that's a big leap to make. In fact, I don't think there was an alternate plan submitted. This was the concept that was initially submitted and was ultimately deemed complete by the borough engineer. My question for you, Mr. Nader, and Mr. Kushner, you keep saying his limited review. Your client received the certified mailing presumably on January 14th, correct? It was mailed out on the 13th? When did your client sign for it?
I don't know, do you have the receipt?
You got the green card? Well, there is mail delivery on Saturdays, but... By the way, the requirement under the municipal land use law is that it be sent out at least 10 days before the hearing. When it's received, whenever someone decides to pick it up, is their own prerogative. As we know, many people don't pick up certified mailings.
We didn't receive the green receipt back on that one.
Really? Okay. So they never signed for it?
Apparently not.
All right, interesting.
Well, the land use law doesn't require that they got it, but they have it because you have a copy of the letter. So somehow the letter got to you.
Wait, hold it. All right, let's stop now. I'm not going all over this courtroom. All right?
Ma'am, are you a representative of the association? Of the apartment? Yes. Well, if you want to come up and state what you were going to state, that's fine.
I don't want to, honestly, what I'd like to do is, I'm not really interested in getting into these procedural issues.
All right, that's fine.
I much prefer to get into the substantive.
That's fine.
And I didn't mean to imply that they submitted an alternate plan, but I thought there was a suggestion, and maybe I misread the chairman's remarks, but I thought there was a suggestion that the planners and the engineers may have considered an alternate plan, or they may have been presented with an alternate plan, and that wasn't, and for some reason, they rejected it. That's all I was saying.
Fine.
I apologize.
Let's proceed with
Yeah, we're okay.
Let's
No
proceed
problem.
with the substantive argument, and then I'm going to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to those comments.
I just want, so one of the things that the engineer said he didn't prepare was a point of view study. Am I right? Is that?
That is correct, yes.
All right. So the point of view study, what would that give you that the board doesn't already have through a point of view study that wasn't provided to them?
Well, a direct impact from the tenant's point of view to the facility. What happens at nighttime? It's a 24-hour operation. What happens at nighttime when the lights are on, when the vehicles are coming in and out, and the landscaping or the buffering, as they suggested, is still young and has not matured. Given that situation, what happens? What happens to somebody who is living in that apartment that constantly views the light and sees the light 24 hours, cannot go to sleep, decides to exit the lease and leaves the apartment? And anybody else coming in says, I don't want to lease that apartment because I cannot stand the lights in my bedroom or in my apartment.
I mean, these are questions that should have been asked prior to this. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Let him finish.
You know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's basically the point.
Okay. All right. Let him, I'm sorry, finish up.
No problem. And given the fact that the grading, again, shows that they're cutting the property, they're dropping it down, that's even worse, because now the people from the apartment complex are not just looking into the lights, they're also looking into the roof of that facility, which is normally not a roof for a residential building. I'm not sure what the type of roofing that they're proposing on this facility. So that would be very helpful to have.
Yeah. Well, they did state that, what kind of roof they were putting on. I don't know if you were
I must
here.
have missed that one.
Okay. They did state all that, and it's in this here, what they handed out, so.
All right.
Go ahead.
I want to ask you a question about the berm. So the engineer said one of the reasons that there should be this waiver is because we have a high berm. Now, are you able to make any determination whether high berm is sufficient to justify a waiver, or should it be a 15-foot berm, should it be a 5-foot berm? In other words, how do you come up with this 10-foot high berm as basically providing support for the waiver request?
Well, depending how you look at it, in my opinion, it's not necessarily a berm that's constructed above a leveled earth. It's basically a graded down elevation from the high down to the low, creating that 10-foot differential from the high point to the low point. Being that the facility is further away from the berm, or the so-called berm, any vehicle that's coming to fuel, again, being parked within that facility, their lights, depending on how high they are, if they have the high beams or not, they basically will be at a certain point within that graded slope, and it might be exceeding that graded slope, depending where they are within that facility. If they're closer to the berm or closer to the graded point, they may not be, but if they're in the further fueling station, they may very well be. Again, that's another point to make about how will that impact the apartment complex.
So just to sum up, based upon your review of the plans, what impact specifically do you see to the apartment complex based upon the plans that you've seen in the testimony that you've heard? Can you hit the high points of what impacts that you see perhaps not being addressed by what you've had an opportunity to review in the testimony so far?
Well, again, revisiting what I stated earlier, the one major impact is the deceleration, acceleration off of Route 9. Like I said, the second impact is the height of the fueling station and the location of the fueling station relative to the apartment complex. The third is the berm that is being proposed in the graded area, and the type of landscaping being proposed. Nothing is evergreen, everything is deciduous within that location. The odor, the safety, again, without repeating everything I said earlier.
And just the last question I have for you is, so you've had these reports, what other reports are necessary in order for you to properly vet this application and present testimony before this board so that you have a development that goes in there that's going to be safe, secure, and non-disturbing to the adjoining property owner of 177 apartment units?
Well, normally I do review of all the engineering reports that are submitted as part of the application. The drainage report, the stormwater management, the water quality report, if there are any. What drainage impact do we have on Route 9? Since our drainage also connects to Route 9, has that been studied? Is there any impact from that drainage onto our facility? Is there going to be any backwater impact on it? The traffic report, we would like to look at that as well. The reasoning behind the location of the operation, and the reasoning behind the driveway in the rear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chairman, before you go to other members of the public, perhaps the applicant wants to respond to the objector's
Yes.
case. And I know there may be other members of the public who want to comment.
We'll get to you.
We'll hear you afterwards, all right? We'll hear you afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Well, Mr. Nadir, I still need you. If you can come back. I just have a few questions.
You both have mics?
So just a few questions for Mr. Nadir, and then I'm going to just...
Nadir.
No, Nadir, I
Nadir,
apologize.
yes.
And if it's okay with the board, I'm just going to bring my engineer back up just to rebut a few things. Sir, counsel, before he brought you on, described these plans as complex plans. From my view, they look like standard convenience store gas station plans. Would you describe them as complex plans?
Well, they certainly are complex in the sense of what is being proposed. I mean, there is my review. I believe there were close to about 17 or 18 sets of plans.
Okay, and you had about a half day today to review them?
About a half a day, yes.
Let's say you had 10 days to review them. Would you have been able to review the plans?
Well, let's say 2 days.
2 days, okay. When were you contacted by your client to review these plans?
Yesterday, late yesterday.
Okay, so if he had contacted you 10 days ago when he got his notice, you would have had ample time to review the plans.
Depending on what is being given to me.
Well, but-
If the plans in their entirety, along with the reports and everything else, depending on what is given to me, I would say yes. 10 days should be, if I clear my schedule, should be enough time.
So I will submit to you all the plans that you said you needed to see were on file with the borough at their offices 11 days ago, 12 days ago. So assuming you had access to all of those, which you would have, and you said you needed 2 days to review the plans, if you had been notified 10 days ago, you would have had ample time to review the plans.
Well, normally we request the plans to be sent to us. It's very hard to come down to the offices in here and have to open the plans and take up their space and their time and everything else. So normally we would request those plans to be submitted to our office. We'd review them in our office.
But once you had a copy of all those plans, you would be able to review them in about 2 days.
In general, that's what we would dedicate. And it's not just myself, it's myself and whatever staff I would need within my office, yes.
Okay. You talked about safety hazard of the gas station. Are you aware of any state or borough regulations with respect to how far a gas station needs to be away from a building or away from a residential zone?
I didn't, like I said, I didn't have the opportunity to review all the requirements, the borough requirements, so I would say I would need to look at that.
Okay.
That's part of the review process that we would be conducting.
Okay. Are you aware of what the tenants of the property see when they look out their windows now, as the site is currently situated?
Well, I had the opportunity to go out to the site today after I reviewed the plans, and I, parked in that parking lot facing your facility, stepped down and looked at it, and I'd say they definitely look at trees with no leaves on them at the present time, but obviously they're mature trees. They're very dense and mature.
Okay, and the plan, as it stands now, calls to leave all those trees remaining. You are aware of that, correct?
You're saying that they're leaving all the trees on the site?
All the trees in that area bordering your client's property.
Well, based on my review of the plans, I believe they're taking quite a few of them out in order to build the facility.
Okay, I believe that's been addressed already by my engineer, but he can talk about that as well. Okay, I think that's all I have for the witness at this time. Just a couple of things before I bring my engineer up, just a couple of things I think I can touch on to try to save us some time based on the testimony that's already been given. First, obviously, as Mr. Sachs stated, the Peter Pank has been and I think always was a 24-hour site. So we're not looking to change that. It was a 24-hour site. It's going to continue to be a 24-hour site. I know there was a question about acceleration and deceleration and the residents being able to get out from their site. As everyone's aware, the Peter Pank has been there for, I'm not even get a guess how many years, but long before I was born, and has been there for a while. And there's been traffic coming in and out of the Peter Pank at 3 different points for the last 50-plus years, and it hasn't affected the residents. And obviously, we're making the traffic pattern much better in the area, if nothing else. As far as why the roadway and the driveway is the way it is, as our engineer testified to, that is a very steep slope. We have to make it that S-curve to make it safe. It can't go straight up because just of the steepness of the curb. I don't know if any of the board is aware, but as I said before, one of the comments and one of the people we met with was the owner of the corner property on Dusco Drive. And she actually had petitioned a long time ago to have that area shut down because people were ending up on her front lawn. And actually, the roadway emptied out about further north on the property. We've moved the property, the driveway south a little to line up with Dusco Drive to prevent that issue, and made the S-curve to prevent anyone from sliding down the road when it gets slippery. Right now, that roadway is extremely steep, and that's the reason why we're making that S lane to make it safe for the drivers. I know we talked at length about the apartment complex, about which way it's facing. I believe the engineer even just testified to. It's facing the trees. Those trees are not coming down. So the impact to their view is going to be limited, if anything at all. With that being said, I'm just going to call our engineer back up just to address a few issues.
Wait till he finishes, and then I'll give you a shot.
Mr. Sherry, you're still under oath.
Okay, Mr. Scherer, I'm just going to, you obviously were in the room to hear the testimony of the engineer? Okay, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. He commented with respect to headlights and vehicle height shining onto the neighboring property. Can you just address that issue?
Sure. Due to the graded slope between the edge of curb and the residential property at 10 feet. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
That effectively is a 10-foot wall in that location. So headlights would shine into the side slope, into the planted side slope, 30 feet away from the residential property line.
Okay, there was a lot of talk about our request for a waiver or variance with respect to the 50-foot buffer. Can you just speak to that?
Sure. I've talked to the applicant, the client. We are actually, due to the comments by the board and the attorney here, we will agree to move the tanks out of that buffer and eliminate the waiver for the buffer, as well as overplant this area with evergreens, ornamental trees, shade trees, that will provide a much better screen along with the 10-foot berm.
Where will those
Slope.
tanks?
Excuse me?
Where will those tanks be relocated?
Talked about it. A possible location would be where we're showing the air pumps. So lose a couple spaces, and then move the air pumps north within this parking bay.
Okay, I think that's a very good alternative. Okay.
And just for the record, you said we're going to lose a couple parking spaces, but my assumption is since we have more than, I'm guessing, 20 or 30 more than we need, we're not going to lose.
We're comfortable with the 54, 55 that we will end up with.
Okay.
That's what it'll be instead, right?
What?
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Good?
Yep.
They agree to that.
Okay, there's just some comment. I just want to make sure for the record as to whether or not the waiver will be able to meet the 50-foot buffer and will eliminate the waiver entirely, or will we be able to increase?
If it's not entirely, we may be a foot or two into the buffer.
Okay.
All right. So then just.
We're eliminating the tanks out of the buffer.
Okay. So then just.
That puts them a lot further away from the.
Yeah, we can't. I can't give you the exact number of feet now.
No,
We'll
but
still request the waiver if necessary. We will try our best to get the 50 feet, but we may be at between
49.
45 and 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, the canopy is going to stay where it is, though?
Canopy stays where it is,
Okay,
yes.
fine, okay.
Okay. Continue.
Okay, there was a question about putting a sidewalk in from the neighboring property. Can you address that?
I can. Due to the grade differential between the two properties, putting a sidewalk that goes directly from the residential property to our drive aisle, it's not possible due to the grading in that area. There is a 10-foot graded slope, and that wraps around to the front. And by the time we get to a decent slope, flatter slope, we're up towards the center of the building.
You put in some steps.
And it's ADA issues and.
Well, let me ask you, all right, if you couldn't do that, is it possible to put a sidewalk along Route 9? Obviously, it may require DOT permission, but, at least this way, the residents could have access to the site without driving to it necessarily. I'm sure Wawa would appreciate that, because it gives them increased business, but.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the grading and along with DOT to see if it's ADA compliant. The road's steep in that area, so we're fighting the road as well. So.
Oh, so in other words, it's basically the same grade.
Yeah, there's from the southernmost point to the driveway is 10 to 15 foot drop.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially in that area, you don't need a steep sidewalk along Route 9.
I agree. All right.
I don't know if it's allowed there anyway.
I don't think so. There was a question and a comment from the engineer about the buffer and respect to 3-inch calipers above my head. But
Yeah, no, the reason for the buffers, due to the 10-foot graded differential between the drive aisle and the property line, we wanted something that was a little higher, that will be a little higher, and have a little bit of buffer above that. We can definitely plant it with some evergreens. We can definitely plant it with some more trees and low-lying bushes to increase that landscape buffer.
All right, so that you'll do.
Yes.
You'll work with them.
Yep.
You'll work with.
You'll work with the
You'll work
apartment.
with, well, you're not gonna work with the apartment, he's gonna work with Mr. Leoncavallo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that we have a plan that's acceptable to you.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there was a question about lighting and lighting shining into the neighboring apartments. Can you just address the lighting issue again?
Sure. Again, we're the light levels. The closest light is approximately
8-inch.
50-plus feet from the property line, which equates to, a designed light level at the property line at about 0.1 foot candles. So, that doesn't model the landscaping, the 10-foot grade differential. Doesn't model those items.
And that's to the property line. And
That's to the property line.
The apartments are well beyond the property line,
Yes.
correct? As far as somebody looking out their window and actually just looking at the site, so we're not talking about light on the neighboring property, can you, with respect to the type of lighting that you're using, where it's being located, can you address how that may affect people looking at the property from up above?
Sure. There's the area light along the curb line on the south side of the property. It's LED light with house side shield internal, so there's no glare coming out of the back of the light, like you see in some of these old shoebox type fixtures. So taking care of the glare coming from the light. And then we have, we can direct that to where we want it due to the LED technology. The other issue I think you brought up was the canopy. The canopy lights are actually flush mounted inside. They're in a casing so that you can't see the light. Actually, there's basically a house side shield on all four sides of the light inside the canopy. So you will not be able to see that light.
Okay, and before you came up, I kind of did a little housekeeping and said a few things. Did you agree with all my comments with
I agree.
respect to the roadway and all of that? Okay. Any other issues that you heard from the engineer who testified that you'd like to address?
No, I think we covered the major one at the south end of the site.
I have a question, Mr. Sharrow. I believe the engineer, Mr. Nader, indicated that it would have been better planning to flip the gas and the convenience store. If you had done that, would that have entailed more? Would that have entailed more impervious coverage on this site?
Maybe not necessarily impervious coverage,
Right.
but the existing buffer that we kept along the property line would go away. Because now you have this building and the parking here. Plus,
So let's clarify when you say here.
sorry, so to the south along the residential property lines. So all this existing wooded area would end up being demolished to regrade the site to essentially flip this. You would be impacting the residential neighborhood more than we're not even impacting.
All right, so when I'm looking at A2, which is the exhibit that has been marked, the green coverage, which we see on the southeasterly side of the site, is that the area you're talking about being eliminated?
Yes.
So that substantial green area wouldn't be there. Obviously, you might have more green space on the north side of the site, but essentially you'd have structures that would actually be even closer to the property line.
Yes.
Okay.
And just, I think you said this in your direct testimony, but just to make it a little clearer. So we lose the green area that Mr. Sachs was just talking about. So we're essentially losing a lot of the buffer between our property and the residential site, correct?
Yes.
And we're taking, as you said, the more intensified use of the convenience store and putting it closer to the residential area without the same amount of buffer.
Yes.
And from your experience and from your work, there's more traffic and parking and everything around the convenience store than there is around the gas station, correct?
Yes. Tried keeping the action away from the residential.
Okay.
Counselor, I don't know if you had.
You said you want.
You had a follow-up?
Yes, I would like to have Mr. Nader have an opportunity to address some of the items that Mr. Shara just addressed for the board. Can I do that?
Sure, absolutely.
We get that mic back.
Okay.
Let's start with the last part of the testimony. Mr. Shara testified that the design concept that you would just suggested, which would mean flipping the gas station and the convenience store, would not be a good idea because of various reasons. Do you agree with this testimony of Mr. Shara? And if you don't, why not?
Well, again, we're not here to redesign the site. However, my opinion is that if you put the building, the convenience store over where the fueling facility is, and you move the fueling facility, rotate it 90 degrees, and put it over to the left of the site, you probably will be able to do the design and keep it within the same footprint of the impervious cover that you have at the present time. You're not going to need to take any of the buffer, the green buffer that's shown on sheet 1. I'm not sure what the exhibit is up in the north or the southeast part of the site. Again, they have more, almost double the amount of parking proposed on the site that is required. So if they reduce that number of parking spaces, they have a lot to work with. And if you put the building over on the right side, you eliminate the parking facing the apartment complex. You only provide parking on 3 sides. Therefore, you're not going to have an issue with lights facing the apartment complex. Anybody coming in will be able to face the building, park directly adjacent to the building, and exit while all the fueling operation will take place further away from the apartment complex. Ideally, this would have worked better than what we have before us tonight.
Anything else?
Yes. Second question would be, Mr. Shara testified that the 10-foot berm would effectively act as a wall and block lights that would be facing from the fueling stations directly toward the residential facilities. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? And if not, why not?
Well, I did speak to that in my earlier testimony. It does certainly for any vehicle that's parked in the closest fueling station adjacent to the apartment complex will not have an issue, but the vehicles that are further away from it may present an issue. Again, the further you are from the slope, the more you're going to be able to see, especially with the apartment buildings. The 2 buildings are higher than the site. So that berm is not necessarily essentially providing a cover. It's basically a graded down area into the site. So you can see. It's like seeing down into a slope. You can see into that fueling station. In addition to that, if you have a larger vehicle, like a truck that's coming into fuel, that truck has a higher headlights than a normal car, a smaller car that's being fueled. So depending on the height of the vehicle that is taking fuel within that operation, you have a different height of headlights.
Well, Mr. Nader, the fueling is going to be removed now. The gasoline deliveries are going to be relocated, so those.
That's a
headlights
positive
not-
step. Yes.
Be facing the other direction now. You're aware of that?
I heard that. Yes, thank you.
Just with regard to, so is deciding to put up a 10-foot berm there, is that sort of just an arbitrary decision with regard to the size based upon some studies that were done with regard to the lighting? How do you arrive at that? In other words, do you know how Mr. Shara arrived at that particular, height of that particular berm?
I'm just.
Well,
I don't know how he can answer that. I don't know how he can answer that question.
I'm not sure a proper foundation's been laid, but if he wants to answer that question, that's fine.
Well, let me ask it this way. How would you, as an engineer, make a determination as to the size of the berm in order to address the issue concerning the lighting into the residential apartment unit?
I'm not sure the relevancy of that question either.
I'll let him answer it.
In general, you have to look at the ordinance and what the ordinance requires and work from there. So if the ordinance requires 10 feet, you work with 10 feet. If the ordinance requires 50, you work with 50. If you need a waiver or variance to reduce that, then you have to have a good reason why you need to reduce it. I believe the grading of the site required the cutting of that slope down by 10 feet to reach the elevations that were desired to allow for that fueling facility to almost be at grade. And then from there for the parking lot to be to a certain degree at a mild slope as required by code. So I'm not here to design, what the engineer came up with. Like I said, I didn't have the opportunity to review every grading, elevation, and contour on the site, but that would be the way to start doing the design.
And just for the record, that we're not requesting a waiver or a variance there, so we meet all the borough requirements and ordinances on that.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have one last question about traffic. I believe there was some testimony, or at least a representation, that this property previously had been used as a diner, and now it's being transformed into this other uses as a Wawa and so forth. I don't believe there were any studies or testified to with regard to the difference between the traffic that's anticipated with the new concept there versus the amount of traffic that's in Peter Pan Diner. Is that something that, in order to address this issue of safety, some kind of a study should have been done with regard to what was previously, what kind of traffic there was into that site when it was Peter Pan, as opposed to what volume of traffic is anticipated to take place with the new concept?
I'm going to object to that. There was a study done. The study was provided to the township within the statutory requirements.
There was a study done.
And this witness is an engineer, not a traffic expert. We already had our traffic expert up there, and he testified to the study that he did.
Mr. Nader, did you review the traffic study?
I wasn't given that today.
Well, wait, you weren't given it, it was provided with, it's part of the plans. I mean, you were in the zoning office.
I was. The only thing that I was provided with are the plans.
All right, but did you
and a
ask-
copy of the, a copy of the letters that were issued by the engineer.
All right, but did you ask for a traffic study? Did you ask for all the documents that were in the file?
I did. I asked for anything that may be available. Like I said, it's difficult when you're sitting in the offices in here to basically take advantage of the space and the people that are busy and ask for everything that may
Well,
be in the file.
that's their job. They're there from the
I
hours
understand.
8:30 to 3:30.
Well, they were very nice. Let's put it this way. They were very accommodating.
All right.
I'm not going to say anything bad about it.
Yeah, can only speak on your expertise.
All right, but you are obviously aware that a traffic study was provided, drainage calculations?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm not aware.
Well,
I
all
didn't
right,
see anything.
well, let me
wasn't-
ask you some questions then. You're a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I'm assuming you've probably handled a number of these types of projects on behalf of private applicants, have you not?
I have, yes.
You have, all right. So in the course of your training and in the course of your representation of clients before planning boards and zoning boards, you would expect a traffic study to be done on a project of this magnitude, correct?
I would expect it, absolutely.
Sure. And in fact, even more so, you understand, who has the traffic jurisdiction on this project?
Well, I would assume that DOT would take jurisdiction over this one,
You
considering
would
it's on-
assume, or you would agree that the DOT would take?
I would, again, without looking at any documents, I would assume it's.
What's your understanding as to Route 9? Is that well, not only is it it's a state highway, correct?
It's a state highway,
All right,
yes.
okay, so obviously, as an engineer, you understand that the Borough of Sayreville doesn't have any jurisdiction over this site, it's basically DOT, correct?
Well, which again would trigger, was it submitted to the DOT? Did the DOT review it? Did they issue any comments? I don't know. I don't have the answer to those questions. Was there a study done by the DOT and the engineer piggybacked on that study and simply added some additional information? Was there a physical count that was done? I'm not
Did you
really
ask
sure.
for a traffic study from the applicant?
Did I ask for one?
Yeah.
Like I said, I was notified about this application yesterday, so the answer is no.
Okay, all right, but obviously, if your client, which is the apartment complex, had notified you when they received this, or whenever they decided to sign for it, you would have had an opportunity to review those documents.
Well, I haven't known my client. Honestly, I've known this client for 30 years. I've worked with him for close to that amount of time. He's a very diligent person in terms of requesting and asking for information. He owns quite a few properties within the state of New Jersey. He's always on top of things. I'm pretty sure, as the attorney stated, that he did request the information, and I'm not sure what the answer was. He was never provided with the plans to be able to review them or send them to me for my review. So I would tend to say that he never had the opportunity to get those plans or the reports and send them to me and for me to review them in time and provide better testimony tonight.
Well, then shame on your client. That's all I can say,
Well-
because obviously, they had the opportunity to retrieve a certified mailing that was probably at the Sayreville Post Office, or the Parlin Post Office, or the South Amboy Post Office, whatever jurisdiction this is under, you know, within that 10-day period. So, shame on them. But, all right, thank you.
Okay, no problem, thank you.
Thank
Just-
you.
Just a couple of things just to address that. First, our notice went out, certified and regular mail. We didn't get either back, and obviously they received something because I got a call yesterday. It went out well outside the 10-day statutory limit, and the engineer has testified that had he been called a little sooner, he would have had the time that he claims he needs now. Sorry, I lost the engineer. I had just one or two follow-up questions. Mr. Nader, I just want to talk about the headlights. When you first testified, you said that the headlights would be shining into the apartments. After my engineer testified, after you revised it to say when they're looking down from the apartments, they may be able to see the headlights, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Well,
I did not state that.
Okay, so
what I stated is that the closer you are to the graded area, the probably more you would be protected by the graded area. The further away you are, as I stated again in testimony, that the lights would be shining towards the apartment building.
shining towards, but not shining in the windows of the apartment building.
Well, again, somebody standing in the window looking into that fueling facility would be able to see it.
Looking down.
Yes,
from above.
absolutely,
So
yes.
they're not shining into the window; they're looking down at the vehicles.
It's
Not to argue, I mean, not to argue with this, if council has a question, we're happy to answer the question, but let him answer.
Just
it.
answer it.
Why
I
don't you
apologize.
ask him a question?
Yes.
Rephrase it,
Yeah.
rephrase it.
Rephrase it.
I apologize. Do you know let me rephrase that. There are currently parking spots at the Peter Pank Diner as currently situated now, correct?
I didn't review the existing condition of the diner.
But you would assume that there are parking spots at a diner, correct?
I can't assume.
You can't assume.
I'm an engineer. Without viewing it and reviewing it and looking at it, I can't assume.
Sir, I will submit to you that there are parking spots at the diner.
Excellent.
Can you agree to that?
That's your statement.
Okay.
All right, listen, this is getting ridiculous.
It is.
Hold on one second. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes,
How
sir.
are lights that are made to cover the ground around the gas pumps going to go 30 feet up into the windows up there? How's that going to happen?
It all depends on the elevation.
Just tell me how.
Well, let me answer, Chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. It all depends on how these lights are going to be covered, number one, and how much lighting is going to be spilled down and what the reflection of that lighting will be. Again, every vehicle that's going to come into park is a metal vehicle. Those lights are shining on metal. Metal reflects lights. So if you don't necessarily see directly into the light, you're going to see the reflection from
And
those vehicles.
what would we do with that? How would we change that? There's
Shift the fueling facility over to the
There's still
left
going to be
and put the
cars
building.
on the other side, and there's going to be lights from the building
Yes, but those lights are
pointing down.
They're well, not just pointing down. They're smaller lights. The intensity is a lot less than the intensity of lights over the fueling facility.
Okay.
They're probably going to be building mounted on the building, so it's a lot less intense than having a fueling facility with major operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Mr. Nader, did you have an opportunity, did you ask for the lighting plan? Did you see the lighting plan? Did you look at the site plan? Because I'm assuming the lighting plan was attached to the site plan.
Council, really, we want to be as responsive to you as we can, but we can't answer 5 questions.
No.
Shot to us in rapid fire.
I'm not asking, I asked him, Counselor, quite frankly, you have an engineer standing up here tonight stating that he didn't review certain documents, and I would respectfully suggest that all of the documentation that he would have needed to see would have been contained on the site plan. I mean, obviously, we have partial exhibits here, but I'm sure there's a voluminous set of site plans which has not only the construction details, the grading plan, the stormwater management plan, and a lighting plan, which shows the foot candles and spillage onto the adjacent property, if there's any, in addition to the traffic report, which I know was on file with the municipality. So my question to your witness, who you proffered, very simply was, did you look at the lighting plan?
And I think, and I'll let him answer that, Council, but I think he's already answered this question many times with regard to what he's had the opportunity to review, what he hasn't had the opportunity to review, and I think we've been very straightforward with that. I just want to say one thing, because that seems to be a very, very big point here. This is a complex project, okay? And there are a lot of plans that have to be reviewed. And my feeling ultimately is that what the board wants to do is it wants to make the right decision for the applicant, and it wants to make the right decision for the adjoining property owners. We're trying to present you with our position to the best that we can. I'm not saying that we did it as well as we should have done. You're probably right. It should have been taken a look earlier. As Mr. Nader said, Mr. Abramson is a very diligent person, okay? But having said that, I don't know what the harm would be by allowing Mr. Nader or other people, like a traffic expert, to review these plans and to delay it. This is the first hearing of this applicant before this board. It's not like the applicant has been here 10 times. And so, is it that unusual in the business of the board to allow some flexibility for a reason? Some reasonable issues have been raised here. Some reasonable questions have been raised. I think those are reasonable questions that the board would think that it might want further answers to or further information from. I realize that the board has experts that it relies upon, but it also relies upon the applicant's experts, it relies upon objector experts. We haven't been able to do as good a job as we would like to do because we haven't had as much time to do it. The applicant has had months and months and months to prepare its plans and finalize its plans. We only get 10 days at best, and maybe that's what the law is. I'm not arguing what the law is, but there's also sort of a discretionary part on the part of the board using common sense and saying, we want to do the right thing. Are we going to just make this decision based upon a half-baked pie, or do we want the thing fully baked?
Yeah,
That's
well,
what we're
listen,
asking.
That's fine, and that's a decision that the board can make, because I understand the applicant is not inclined to permit any further hearings on this. Certainly, if you would like to ask this board if they are inclined to request your adjournment request, then that's fine. I mean, that's up to the board to decide, all right? But to respond to your issue of whether or not this is a complex project, I'm not sure where your practice is, Mr. Kushner. I think it's up in North Jersey somewhere.
It is up in North Jersey.
Okay, all right. So I'm not holding it against you, but this is a fairly sophisticated town. We have several major highways that bisect the municipality. Garden State Parkway, Route 35, Route 9, Route 34. So this board is used to dealing with projects of this size, and in fact, much larger projects. In fact, not this board, but I know the planning board has dealt with probably one of the largest projects in the state of New Jersey along the Raritan River, and the same professionals who have reviewed that project are the same ones who are sitting here this evening. So I understand it's a big project. I understand it's your client is concerned about it. I believe there have been certain concessions made by the applicant, but if you're asking this board for additional time, that's strictly up to the board. All right, and I think what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is maybe hear from other members of the public, and if you want to make your request, Mr. Kushner, at the end, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to hear from other people.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to speak on this application? Anyone else like to speak on this application from the public?
Okay.
All right, that's,
Okay. That's all right.
that's all right?
All right, so Mr. Kushner, would you like to come on up, and I assume you would like to make a motion perhaps as an objector for additional time, and it's up to the board to decide what they want to do on that. And if the board's inclined to give additional time, then fine.
Okay, want to make,
Before I make that motion, I want to say that if there was anything that in my remarks that would even suggest, any kind of insult to this board with regard to its breadth of expertise, I apologize for that because that wasn't my intent. and I realize that, you know, I understand, I may be from North Jersey, but I do understand.
No,
I do understand this area, and I realize that the board has had a lot of complex things. I'm only talking in terms of its impact.
Okay.
But yes, no, you're absolutely right. What I would like to do is to make an application to the board, motion to the board, to adjourn this matter so that we would have an opportunity to further vet this application and the various reports that have been presented so that we can hopefully give the board a complete and full picture. As you've indicated, the applicant has graciously made certain adjustments in its plans just from our testimony tonight, and maybe there are even better things that we can do. And that's what we hope to do. We're not looking to shoot down this application. We're looking to make this the best application that can be made in everybody's interest. Thank you very much.
No.
Can I just briefly speak to that?
Mhm.
Not going to take up too much of your time. I know we've talked about this a lot. We have complied with all the statutory requirements. The objector's own engineer stated he would only need 2 days to review these plans. They had over 10 days to do so. It should not be held against my client, cannot be held against my client, that they sat on their rights until the day before the hearing and placed a call to my office yesterday in the afternoon. My client has the right to be heard tonight, has the right to ask for a vote tonight. As I stated to you before, my client cannot give its consent for various reasons for an adjournment on this matter, and we'll submit to the board.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, maybe the proper procedure is that if a member of the board wants to make a motion to grant additional time to carry this to a future meeting, that would be the proper format, and that motion should be seconded, and then we would take a vote on it. Quite frankly, if no one's inclined to make that motion, then I think you've got your answer, so to speak, all right? All right, so at this point, if anyone is inclined to make a motion to grant additional time to the objector, you can do so at this point. And I'll give you another 15 seconds to consider that.
Okay, that's it.
All right, so I assume from the silence that nobody on this board is inclined to make a motion to grant additional time to the objector. And just so the record's clear, Mr. Harlick, you're not consenting to grant any additional time?
You're not.
So at this point, you have concluded your case?
We have. I'd like to make a few just brief remarks.
Before you do that,
I didn't, yeah, excuse me.
let's close the public.
Yeah, okay, do I have a motion to close to the public?
Second.
Okay, it's closed to the public. Go ahead, you may speak now.
Thank you. I know it's been a long evening, so I'll keep this brief. I know we heard a lot of testimony here tonight. As I stated to you at the beginning, we're looking for a preliminary and final major site plan approval along with conditional use variance approval and the waivers and variances that have been talked about at length tonight by our experts. You heard from our engineer who spoke at length about the site plan, and our planner who touched upon and testified at length about the positive and negative criteria with respect to the use variance and the fact that the conditional use variance has, for a gas station, has 10 different components. We comply with 9, and we just have that one component of the no more than 3 gas stations in a linear mile. That's a little off base here just because of the fact 2 of those gas stations are on the southbound side, only 1 is on the northbound side, and the fact that there was a gas station within this very local vicinity not too long ago that was torn down. It is something that would be suitable for the site. With respect to our objectors here tonight, I know I just talked about it, but I'll just touch upon it again. Statutory requirements are that we send out our notices 10 days in advance, at least 10 days in advance. We did so. There are no suggestions that notice wasn't received in time. Their own engineer stated that he only needed 2 days to review this. My clients should not be held accountable for their sitting on their own rights to review the plans that were available at the township's office. All of the plans have been available for quite some time now. So with that being said, we're going to submit to the board and make a request for approval of the preliminary and final site plan, the conditional use variance, and all of the variances and waivers that we have talked about tonight in conjunction with the property. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I just want to go over a couple things. First of all, we agreed to move the tanks, right?
We did move, and when we say the tanks, we just mean the storage tanks that
Yeah.
are underground, not the
No,
physical
no,
fuel.
that's it, yeah.
And you're also gonna add to the buffer, and there's gonna be signage posted, the south buffer at least.
Yes, the south.
To abate the waiver that you were originally seeking.
Yes.
And there's going to be signage installed on Route 9 prohibiting tractor-trailer access for fueling.
And we're lowering the sign.
And the sign's
Lowering the
gonna
sign
be
to
lowered
25 feet.
And-
And that signage obviously will be posted and, but will not apply to delivery trucks, because obviously they
We're
have.
gonna look into widening that entrance, like we said,
From 20
right?
feet to 25 feet.
We will look into it.
Really, I'm gonna tell you, that's a strong concern of mine. I understand the certain regulations and stuff.
As long as it complies with DOT regulations.
That's what I mean, I agree. Okay?
So, just so the board is. And the evergreens to the satisfaction of Mr. Leoncavallo, correct, Mr.?
I'd like to also stress that, sorry about my voice,
Go ahead.
but that they do an analysis so that the trees are high enough that they do block.
Well, I think, based on the type of tree that I guess is going to be provided, Mr. Leoncavallo will.
Yeah, I think we can look at that and make some suggestions.
Make
and
sure it's right for the
recommendations.
apartment.
Make sure it's high enough so that it blocks.
And
Okay?
we'll use some fast-growing material, so.
Okay, yeah. All right, you agree that?
Yeah, obviously, we can't plant trees that are already that height, and have something that has to grow to that height. But yes, we agree with that.
Just as long as John's okay with it.
And just so the board is clear, the application was for a preliminary and final site plan for a D3 conditional use variance. There was one condition which was not satisfied, which is the number of gas stations within a linear mile. In fact, all the other bulk requirements under that conditional use were satisfied.
That's correct.
Okay. And then there were some bulk variances as well for signage and signage height. So that's what you're voting on. It's one vote. You can make. Yes. Now, this requires 5 votes. We only have 6 here this evening.
And-
Would you like us to proceed forward with that?
Yes, and just on those other variances and waivers, obviously it'll be in the transcript, and we'll have to talk about that. It was for signage, sidewalks,
Right.
some internal landscaping.
Those are the
All-
waivers.
And all of those, yes.
Yeah, those are the, I was just talking about the bulk variance.
Okay.
All right. I have a motion on this resolution.
Make a motion, we approve the application with the changes that were talked about?
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a roll call, please.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Kreismer?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Okay, your resolution's been approved. You'll get it after the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Just have a couple resolutions. Just one. All right, application 16-27, Carmen Melendez.
Make a motion, we approve the application or
Yeah.
resolution?
And I got a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Mr. Kreismer?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Usually we've been having 30-minute meetings. This made up for like the loopholes. Meeting's adjourned.
You should be coming.
What?
You'll get me a transcript.
I'll get you a transcript, yeah, they usually turn around about a week. I know. I'll talk to them about it. They have to, my office can't reach out to them, but they'll talk to the DOT. Now that we're approved, we can start submitting applications.
Good night.
My office can't handle it. We can't go before state agencies, so.
It might just turn out to be a template.